What's up, everybody? It's Hotline League episode 152, and boy, are we happy to be bringing you the show because other shows in the space have decided to just take the rest of the year off. You know, like they're just not interested. But we've got so many more episodes to go this year for you, including this one. And
we are so desperate for your time and money that we can't afford to take it off.
True.
Whereas the other things can.
True. What are you wearing?
I put my hoodie on just on my head to keep my hair up. It's like a hairnet.
There's a TikTok trend where people wear, like, they do that with their hair. They put like a towel or something on their hair whenever they are trying to have a pseudo conversation, and when it's like a one man or one woman play.
Yeah. It's how they differentiate themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally by saying that's like the girl in the TikTok. So anyway,
indeed,
I guess that's what we're doing here. It is a special episode, everyone, because we frequently have guests on the show. And tonight we've decided not to have a guest. We've decided to solely dedicate this episode to you, the viewers. And because of that, we're also going to not really have too many dedicated topics to discuss. Instead, we're going to let you guys, it's open mic night here on Hotline League, where you guys get to choose the topics. I mean, you normally do, but it's usually within the confines of what happened in the past week. This time we want to hear whatever you guys want to talk about. So
I love how you try and spin this positively. It's a very special episode where we finally have to take all the calls about what people think a good format would be that will never see the light of day.
So actually, I haven't done the video yet.
Do we want to do it?
What?
I was going to say, do we want to go down that rabbit hole? Because that's like the rabbit hole we open up when we say we'll talk about anything, and then people start talking about, let's copy First Strike's format, or let's do this. I mean,
it's so funny you say that, because I'm planning on doing a video about how Valorant's new format for next year is going to be. It's what every League fan, I think, wishes we had, right? Which is, like, they showed me, I think I'm allowed to say this, they showed me the stuff under embargo, and then I think Peter retired, and so then I couldn't do the video that day because I was doing that video instead, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But like, one of the notes in their presentation to me was like, it's shamelessly global, and I'm like, that is something you could never say about League of Legends esports, and the way that it works, right? Like, this year we had one international event, I guess, next year or two with MSI, but I think we can talk about that. So if people want to talk about the Valorant stuff, that's fine. I think the only things we should avoid are I feel like once a month, anytime we do this, what are some of the topics? People always call in with the same topics sometimes. I don't know. There's so many that repeat themselves.
Yeah,
I can't even
TSM Huni was a bad pickup. Thanks.
Yeah, but there's some that are just perennial favorites, right? Pros in North America are lazy. That's just people love that one.
Oh, that actually did happen this week though. Because there was the translation from Crown.
Oh, yeah.
From Ambition to Twitch stream to someone interpreting and bringing it up.
Yes.
Which then Aloran, who I like a lot, responded to.
Yeah. A couple of people did, I think. It wasn't Aloran. It was also, there was somebody else on Optic.
Oh, Kelsey Moser had a really funny tweet.
Yeah, she did too. But there were a couple people that were not so accurate. By the way, this episode brought to you by Alienware. Love Alienware, really excited about them. We also have, I was hoping to announce it this episode, but Mark knows what it is, but we have a supposed sponsor coming up soon that we are both really excited about. We're just waiting to sign the paperwork. I was hoping it would get solved today, but unfortunately not.
Will we be able to listen on stream as a part of the sponsorship?
What? Don't talk about this right now. Don't get me in trouble before I get this paperwork signed, please.
What? I haven't even asked anything specific. This is
the spoiler thing.
That's exactly what.
It's just.
It's subjective.
You suck so much. Anyway, let's get into the show. We are. Twitch chat killing me right now.
It's a DJ sponsorship to be able to listen to music on his streams.
You're the worst. So anyway, let's talk about stuff. So there was the Crown thing. I
think normally we don't want to talk about that, but given that there's an actual reason to talk about it this week, I think it'd be down.
Okay, yeah. If people want to call in about the current, I just don't know how much there is to say. I mean, if people want to ask, I guess people can ask us questions, right? Like if people actually are curious
we can
about
have a bit more
what
Q&A
North American
too.
LCS culture is, I think we have a pretty good understanding of like the culture over here and how things work. And so I think sometimes, people are fairly ignorant on that stuff, or they do think people are lazy, or they think that people
they think like the LA culture really does mean partying stuff.
I mean,
if the LA culture meant anything, it would be like we go out for food too much, or like we order too much food.
Yes, yeah, exactly. There's that. I mean, Lost got confirmed for TSM, so they can be our TSM topic for the week.
Wasn't that already confirmed though with the Doublelift stuff?
No, I mean he leaked it, but I think he leaked it in the past week even. But it was officially announced. I think.
I know they put that video out or whatever.
Yeah. And then, I don't know. I think most of the rosters are confirmed now, and we have not. I think done we did one that was speculative for like the signing day or whatever. But we did not do anything now that a lot of the stuff has been solidified. So if people have a take like, wow, Dignitas is, not what I want them to be, or they're great, or whatever. Like everything has been kind of confirmed for the most part now. So I think people will be able to chat about that in a way that maybe they weren't able to previously. Anywho, actually, I guess, Mark, we didn't do our normal thing of like, how are you? How you been this week?
So I just got confirmed for my new apartment today. I need to get the check and sign the lease and stuff for tomorrow. But I'm moving legitimately like a block and a half away from you.
Yes. I didn't know if we were if you wanted, I should have asked you beforehand because I wasn't sure if you were comfortable with it, but,
leak away, dude.
But, Mark is going to be moving a block away from me, which is, I don't even think it's a block and a half, by the way. It is like, there's one block between us. I live on one corner, and on the other side of... Yeah.
Block is used very liberally there because it's more like a neighborhood suburb.
I will be able to exit the front of my place and walk 2 minutes and be at the front of Mark's place.
Which is great for COVID. I'm really glad to be moving so close to a friend in this year of all years.
Especially when the stay-at-home order in LA gets lifted, we can walk around the neighborhood with masks on, I guess. But we're pretty excited about that. And especially after COVID, I'm wondering if this is something that I know you're not going to like the idea of doing the show.
Doing Hotline League together?
Yeah.
I was thinking it already, dude.
You were thinking about how you didn't want to do it, or you were thinking it'd be a good idea?
I just thought about it as an idea.
Okay.
Ashley just said no. He said after COVID gets lifted.
Why is Ashley responding to things
no.
with only being able to hear half of it?
Well, because she just heard what I said about doing the show together. I think it's a terrible... Well, will we do it at your place or mine?
Probably mine. I mean, Ashley probably won't.
That office sucks for two people.
I can clean it a little bit and reorganize it a bit, and then we can make it work, I think.
Would you do 2 microphone input?
Yeah, because now I've got the focus right, and so it's got 2... The one thing I did do was I made sure that it has 2 inputs, so I could buy another one of these very expensive microphones. Shout out to all the subs in the chat. And then you and I could talk together on this. And then I guess we'd have like a separate laptop. You could bring your laptop, or I could provide you with one, and then you could still handle that stuff. The only thing that would be weird is like I would hear your conversations next to me when you go into the chat to try to like pull people.
Right.
But I think we could navigate it, honestly.
I mean, we could, and we're definitely getting a little ahead of ourselves, but like I don't know what the benefit is.
Stay tuned, everyone. 2021, Mark and I will be doing live in-person episodes with each other.
For no reason, for no benefit to you, the viewer.
Yeah. Yes. I'm very excited about it.
We'd have to bake in some kind of
it is better. Shows are better when you're in person.
But I feel like you and I have done so many remote shows at this point that there's like I don't feel like we talk over each other at all the way that like happens on other products with people who have less time together, I don't
know. I think it'd be good. Shout us out in the YouTube comments.
I'm already trying to shut this idea down. No, I don't think there's any reason. I don't think there's anything we get out of it.
There wouldn't be any creatures in the background of the camera doing obnoxious things.
We would tank in viewership without my cats. You want to see what they're up to?
But then people wouldn't get timed out in the Twitch chat so frequently.
Well, time to time some people out. Let's see what they're up to down there. Oh, the chair's in the way.
It's great. Love it. Wait, when in January are you moving? This is why everybody listens to this podcast, by the way.
January 1st is our move day, but our lease isn't up till January 10th. So, like, we'll probably move slowly over that week.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, I'm excited about that. That is good news.
I love watching the timeouts come rolling in.
All right. Should we talk about League of Legends stuff?
I guess.
Do you want to explain how the show goes? How this works?
Yeah, the way this show works is it's a live call-in show. So we will go ahead and take your calls. It should be a decent night to get on, everybody. It's been a banger of a week, but for some reason, I feel like it'd be a good week to try and get on. I'm spamming the Twitch chat with the Discord link. Go ahead and join up. Once you get there, you're going to want to join Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2 voice channels. Mute once you get in there so no one can hear your mom in the background cooking. Then in the Pleb Topics text channel, you're going to go ahead and put what your take is. Normally, we prefer to go for takes, but I think, like Travis was saying, this is a week that we'd be more willing to take just questions about the league scene as a whole, about what things might be like, whether it's do we think NA pros work enough, or whatever, what's it like to be an interviewer, anything like that. I think we'll take. Assuming we pull you, you'll be moved into the waiting room where you will hang out until it's your turn to come on. We'll do a quick audio check first, and then you'll be on air talking with us.
Oh, I already see some conversation in the chat that remember I was trying to remember the repeat things. Callers who say things like, there should be geolocation for teams. We've had that call maybe 10 times over the course of the show already. Or LCS should move to Chicago is also a painful one. So that stuff, like, I get that not everybody watches every episode, but there are some things that just, like, I think we're tired of talking about them, and so it's not nice to call in with those.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
Mine's totally unrelated. You finish your thoughts.
I was going to say, if you are, by the way, a sub, be sure to sync your sub stuff with the Discord so that you can put your take in the subtopic chat. And again, we have a little bit less viewers than normal, so if you want to get on the show, this is a good week to do it because, good chance of coming on.
Because this week sucked.
No, this is a good episode. Everyone, here's what I told Mark about this earlier. Okay, listen, if you're listening and you're like, maybe I should turn this off. Listen, I told Mark earlier that some of our best episodes have been the one. Like, I think people like the Mahmood call. That was, I think, when it was just you and me, and we felt like we didn't have anything good to talk about that week. Oftentimes, these open phone line calls episodes are great. So I have high hopes for this episode, Mark, and I don't want you bringing it down.
So I started playing Hades this week. That was the other thing. I saw Smoke Dog talk about it. I enjoy the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but there's a lot of hype given to the narrative to it, and I just beat it the first time, and I know that it's not. It's like a game that you're supposed to keep getting the narrative. But is there like, I try to do like a little reading into like, so what am I playing for? And it sounds like there's a bunch of little narratives that all spin out with each character on their own. You progress them at their own rate, but is the Hades narrative really that great?
Can you go grab our first caller? Off he goes.
Fine.
Thank you to some of the subs. All the subs, but the ones that have subbed since the start of the show, which are Maury Wake, Sapphics, I Am Justin T, N.A. Alistar, Casey Arama, Kelly Mills, Soundwave Surfer, almost 1 year, Tom Shu for 25 months, Community Streams, Jay Schroed, Raging Pianist for 18 months, Dawes Does Gaming, PJ Salt, EZG. Thanks everybody to all of our subs. I really appreciate it. Yes. Hello, Enigma. Where are you calling from?
Sorry. Oh, I need to mute the stream. This is weird.
Ooh. You are very quiet. Let me turn you up. Go ahead again.
Yeah,
Mark, are you able to hear him?
Yeah.
I'm trying to not be too loud because it's 4 in the morning. I'm calling from Surrey in the UK.
Could you not hear him say he's calling from Surrey in the UK? It's 4 o'clock in the morning, so he's trying to be quiet.
No, I could not hear that. I have him at 200%, so I'm surprised you can hear him. Maybe because I'm using those other legacy sound systems. Okay, how are we gonna do this? Enigma, why don't you give your take and then Mark can just explain it.
Okay, so my idea was that with the lack of changes to the dragons and how strong mythic items are on 1-item spikes, games are going to feel even more than this year just like over a lot earlier, which could make viewing LCS a lot more boring. because well, Mark, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say you can keep going. I'll keep relaying once you're done.
So,
why don't you give what he said so far, Mark, so that
okay,
because there's just a bunch of dead air for most people.
So what he said was, with the changes to Dragon and Mythic items being so strong, that the potential for snowball in the game is going to be higher next season.
Gotcha. Anything else, Enigma?
Well, with so with a lot of that, like I play in an amateur university league as well, and a lot of games just feel over really early, which sort of can make it a lot like you're just kind of sat there waiting for the other team to end, and it makes comebacks feel a lot more difficult, especially with everyone just picking the game champs. And a lot of LCS I thought felt like that this year, and like I kind of just zoned out halfway through a lot of games because it was like, oh, this is done. When's it over?
Yeah. So I think I've heard, this is one of those ones that I think I've heard a bunch of times, just about the snowball potential in the game going up, damage is too high, these kinds of things, and I feel like they're most prevalent in the preseason.
Is that what he said? We didn't hear the second part, so I don't know if you were going to reiterate that as well.
Yeah, he said basically that he plays on an amateur or a collegiate level team effectively, and a lot of the games feel doomed pretty quickly. And I was just saying that's something that I think is a feeling that's shared most often in the preseason, and Riot is usually pretty good about trying to address that if it's still an issue. As they slowly balance the game more and more, ideally that kind of goes away. But even if, I think there's a point to be made that if you reach your first item and your first item is monstrous, and I get my first item, 2 minutes before you because I'm winning the game, I will snowball the game even harder, especially with objective control and stuff like that. But there are other levers that they can tune, even without just nerfing those first items. Rubber banding mechanics is most often the one that you see, as well as making the big objectives a little bit harder to take. So if people are snowballing really hard, you can make Barons a little bit more difficult to take, and these kinds of things to try to slow the snowball down. Maybe Mythic items totally break that model, where they're able to do some things with neutral objectives to slow the pace of the game back down. But I don't think Mythic items are going to totally break the game, even if it feels like booty right now and for the next maybe month before things start really getting ironed out.
Yeah, can you, by the way, Enigma, I did hear that you're from the UK, so thank you for calling from the UK. It's very nice of you to stay up so late. But Mark, can you explain a little bit? I'm kind of curious what people's general, because sometimes it's hard for me to sort from the general complaints. Like Reddit will change will complain about anything, right? Like you could lightly change the color of the river in Summoner's Rift, and there'd be a thread talking about how terrible it is, and the visibility in this game is a joke, and I can't believe that they're dedicating research, whatever. So what, among the people who actually think about this stuff and can sort like stuff, what has the general reaction been to all the changes that the game has gone through?
I mean, I think a lot of the more reasonable people or less reactionary people don't want to put their opinion out publicly yet. I think that they're probably in alignment with a lot of what the general fan base is saying in terms of some of these concerns, and the preseason's a bit of a mess with like win rates and what's good and what's not and stuff. But they're giving Riot the time to iron those things out. I was gonna say I coached in a meta once where they released Targon's Brace for the first time, and it was so fucking busted. We were playing like this online tournament qualifier thing, and we bought 5 Targons actually, and our jungler would go between top and mid lane using Targon stacks because it was so busted. So like and Targon got fixed eventually. The meta did not become junglers doing first clear and then hovering in lanes for Targon stacks. But the game tends to break like that when they do these kinds of changes. And I think you'll see over time that get fixed.
Yeah, my point was more that it's not that one specific one is broken, it's that the general power of these items is quite high, which is kind of the point. But I've played games where like I was playing, Shen's broken, I was playing a game of Shen, and I just got to Sunfire Kate before the other tank. I was just farming the lane better than them, and then I just solo killed them 3 times in a row. And I feel like that's going to make jungling, like which lane you have strong side and weak side, the other person just cries, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's intentional from Riot with the mythics, and I think that's good design. But I'm just concerned: is that gonna make certain, like, could it make viewership slightly more boring because the games can become over?
Yeah, I'm hoping some of it's learning curve as well. Like, if one item power spikes are significantly stronger now, people might not be adjusted to it yet. Like picking up Sunfire now versus picking up Sunfire first item previously. It's a difference in what a mythic item can provide, and people might not realize I can't fuck with him until I get my own mythic item. And I think that could be one of the areas that people will adjust to over time. And especially in pro play, people are better about respecting power spikes than solo queue, where people just kind of keep running it down.
Anyway, sorry, Enigma. It seems like we're having a hard time. Other people are also, I guess, having a hard time hearing you. So, not sure what is happening, but I do really appreciate you calling in. Is there anything you want to shout out before we move on?
Well, I guess my university esport was Warwick Esports. Sadly, our top team didn't go and win Newell and NSE. Muppets. But well, that's it.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the call. He shouted out his university team for those that couldn't hear him. Anyway, thanks so much, Enigma, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, cheers, Rose.
Yeah, Mark is messaging me on Skype right now asking me a question, and because I have a new setup, I haven't turned off the
I thought
Skype
I heard it in the background.
Noises, so,
whoop, whoop.
Yes.
My bad.
It's okay. No, it's my fault. I should have fixed that before. We're sorting through things on the show right now. It's going to be a great show, everybody. Just know that
it's the best show we've had in months.
Mark, speaking of Mark, do you want to tweet about the show since you haven't done that yet? Oh, he left. Anyway, okay, I think we're turning off sound. Okay, I think we're turning off sound, so hopefully that doesn't happen now. Thank you to Insulin Shots for the 22 months in the Prime. Cheney Core gifted a sub. Thank you very much for the gifted sub. Anyway, hopefully everything is sorted. We're sorry to the last caller about that. This caller, I wish we wouldn't have to hear as much. Raz, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Los Angeles, California.
Okay, well, we can hear you, unfortunately. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Well, there has been, drama that's been bubbling up for the entire season, I think, actually, for the full year. And you've done a great job at sweeping it under the rug. The first one, which is very obvious, it's the constant war that's being waged, and that's the C word.
Anyway, sorry, what's the second thing?
The second thing is the fact that you took my mod ship away and you refused to give it back.
We decided to take this as the second call, Mark. We couldn't take
there's a call. Have been a great mod to many and to you. But this injustice has gone on for too long, Travis.
Why did you lose it in the first place?
I was just being a contributor to the chat. I was watching along with everyone else, a people's man, one might say. And I made a few comments that were critical of you and your
What did you say?
Your comments. I have no idea what I said. I literally don't know. You probably have it
Actually, hang on.
Pull up your chat logs.
Can you type in the chat so that I can see? The problem is you have so many. You talk so frequently in the chat that I'm gonna have to scroll for a while. But
all right.
What is your Twitch handle? Is it Razzleplasm?
It is Razzleplasm.
Okay.
Let me get on there.
Let me see if I can find this.
I got out of there because I didn't want to be listening to myself while I'm on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm scrolling up. This was a while ago. I feel like it was 6 months ago or something like that.
It was a long time. This is how good you are being able to just sweep it under the rug. All right.
There's so much of the content in this chat log is just you screaming expletives or all cap things like haha fuck and LOL and LMFAO so.
Oh, I also consistently shit talk your the people that you bring onto the show. If they have a bad take, I'm letting the entire chat know. So that happens too.
And I always ask the Twitch chat to be nice, and so whenever somebody with a sword is hard flaming, okay, so I found that you got timed out on July 6. So I'm trying to go to that point.
I definitely said a lot of. I said the C word.
Okay, yeah, you spammed C for K, C for K. I'm not going to say the full expletive.
Of course.
But you spammed that twice in a row.
I spam it nearly every time.
And I don't think that that is mod behavior for this show. And then I timed you out for 600 seconds, and then when you came back, you immediately said "wow," and then you said the word but with spaces in between, and you said Travis has unmodded me. #justice for Raz. #justice for Raz. And
that all sounds good to me.
So it makes me worry that you did not learn and you did not reflect on your time. There was no penance that was paid.
You are lacking crucial perspective. I am out here on the ground working with the people, a grassroots movement for K and for Raz, myself. I'm a people of himself. You just have to understand this, Travis. You can't just be up there in your sky-high apartment.
Your ivory tower.
Mm-hmm. Just like looking down on the community. You have to be able to understand what the people want.
Here's the thing. It's like, he's a maverick, and sometimes he's going to go against the grain and against you, but he'll also be for you. And those times where he is for you, it carries extra weight for the times that he was against you.
Yeah, here's my problem. I was actually, because I just wanted this call, which I don't think is necessarily contributing to the content of the show, and perhaps actively attributing to viewer attrition, both in the live form and in the podcast on YouTube, and lowering my Twitch my watch hours and watch minutes on my platforms. I was thinking I would just mod him so that I could quickly resolve this issue and just move on. But after reviewing the logs and hearing the way that he is arguing his case, which seems to be as if what he did was not an issue. There's no apology in this. He's just like, I didn't deserve it. Give me a mod, which is just not.
This is stronger than the current acting president of the United States. Compare my case to the billions of cases he's levied towards this current election.
Yeah, all right. If that's your argument, you can get.
How about this? I'll swing for Raz. His interactions in our Twitch chat has skyrocketed since he's gotten on the call. Non-stop spam since Raz has joined the call. How about that?
I think he went from this call, which is useless, doesn't really contribute much to the content of the show, to now bringing up political opinions, which will also turn off, according to the most recent election, approximately 48% of our viewer base, if we reflect the general demographics of America. Then it's just Mark is just hard tanking the show right now, and now he's pulled Raz.
All right, I'll go get the other person who Raz will be able to help with in our team.
Okay, very good. True. So Raz is going to stay here.
I can do my time now. Yeah, I can do my time.
Purple Ray Q, thank you for the sub. Cheney Core, thank you for. Oh, Cheney Core, I got you before. Nolan IO, thank you for the 4 months, and then Stealth, thank you for the 4 as well. Community is here. Community, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Bernardino County, California.
San Bernardino, it's a beautiful place.
I've driven through it many times on my way to Vegas.
Yeah, I spent most people don't know this, and I'll admit it here. It's a secret about me, but I spent 2 years of my life in Victorville, California, so very familiar with the high desert. Anyway, community, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So what I want to talk about is the recent comments in an interview that Perkz made about coaches and how he thinks that a lot of them are just, quote, stealing a paycheck. And how he thinks that only ex-pros can, for the most part, be good coaches, and how I think that that's a really bad mindset as a pro player to have, and it's one of the many things preventing the West from ever actually performing consistently well internationally.
So I did not see this this interview. Was this on Reddit recently?
I saw it on Twitter. It was a Spanish interview, I think, and then I saw some YouTube videos pick it up.
It was I think it was a Croatian interview actually. That's just been translated around.
Okay. I'm a little nervous about translated content, especially.
I mean, there was a lot of things covered in that about, was he given the opportunity to go to Fnatic and all these things. And I think I tried to look for the people who were skeptical about the interview, and they were saying like maybe he was a little bit of tongue in cheek, but at least the interview, like the translation, seems to be good. Like maybe the tone wasn't quite carried as well,
sure.
but it
okay. So
like
let's just take it on its like we'll put a benefit of the doubt on whether or not.
I want to start off with this one by saying, because I read that interview, or at least like what was put on Reddit as well, and I understood it. I'm just coming off from memory since it does seem like the thread has been taken down. First of all, is that the case? Has it been taken down? Am I just crazy?
I don't know. It was like a couple days ago. So I don't know where it is.
So my understanding, because having read the interview, is that he was referring to like in the past that this was certainly the case, that like that there were a lot of coaches stealing interviews, and he was talking about his current coach as a positive. He said
stealing paychecks. You mean?
Oh yeah, stealing interviews, stealing paychecks. So like I felt like that was more of a statement of the past rather than the present, and did reference the more ex-professionals, like ex-pros coming into the scene and kind of comparing it to like traditional sports being a positive, because like of course like ex-pros definitely have like the experience and like can convey that and have the game knowledge. So I didn't necessarily see it as like an indictment on current coaches, but I would have to look back at it just to read it.
The whole paycheck stealer thing was definitely a little bit more targeted towards the past. But I do think it's an interesting conversation to have about, player coaches versus other people who come up in the scene or what have you.
It does. So it was removed because reposts are not. Your post has been removed because reposts are not allowed, as well as topics that have already been covered.
When was it ever? Okay, never mind.
It was also removed because vague, contextless, mimetic, or inaccurate titles are not allowed. So I don't know why that went there, but I'll link the thread in the Twitch chat. I think I'm Reddit mods. Don't put me into Reddit jail if I'm not allowed to link deleted threads. But I assume if it's a deleted thread, it's safe to share. So I just know I'm doing this not out of malice, but just out of I'm scared. Okay. Anyway, I linked it in the Twitch chat. So interesting. Was this because the title of it was based off of the title for this was "Why didn't you go to Fnatic because they didn't let me?" Perkz interview on a Croatian podcast. So maybe they did share this in another thread as well, but this is like one that got close to 10,000 upvotes on the subreddit. Okay, well, it looks like it's like a video, and also because it's removed, I can't click to the source. So I apologize to everybody for the situation.
It's weird that it's being seen as a video just because it was a full transcript, or like a from the
it was
made the thread before. So this might not be the thread, or it was deleted, so you can't see it anymore.
Whatever. Okay, sorry. Let's just move on and go with the take of are coaches a paycheck stealers, whether or not that was entirely what Perkz meant or not. Let's just go with that topic. Especially if they are non-pros. So, Raz, you're very obviously biased because you are a coach. Well, currently not in a official coaching role, I guess, but you have for the past year been a coach for a team, and you are not a previous pro. So, I guess what is your take on all this?
How much money did you steal? How many paychecks?
Quite a bit, monthly as well. I mean, like, from the teams that I've, in North America that I know, like, no, I don't think that. Well, what the hell am I hearing right now? Is it an earthquake? Okay, we're back.
I think community was.
Yeah, I know that was what I was referring
community,
to.
Community, if you can.
But no, the answer is no. I think from all the coaches that I've known, like they do provide quite a bit to the team. It's more of a question of like what do they provide, and it's also a question of like if because obviously like I don't know. I think this is the most dangerous topic because we actually just have no idea what the fuck happens behind closed doors and how much like do they actually provide to their team? Are they more like what they're referring what Perkz was referring to his current coach, which was like strong analytically but bad managing players is what they said. But like that's something that really depends coach to coach. Like what are they offering to their team? So the idea of stealing paycheck, I hate that conversation because like players will never fucking say about their current coaches or previous coaches. And then the community will definitely hop on to this train where it's like, they actually have no idea. So it's like, so where are we going? It just feels like it's just the weirdest question of all time. Unless if there's for sure evidence based off of like interviews or how the person carries or like previous teams.
I mean, we've heard. I would say, like, Mark, you and I have heard a lot over the past like 7 years of a coach just not contributing much to a team or not being functionally helpful or whatever. And I feel like a lot of the times we have to, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when we're voting for coach of the split, you kind of have to do a little bit of reconnaissance on what are the players actually saying about the coach behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I think some people just straight up don't vote. I still vote, and I my reasoning being, I don't know anything about any of the coaches, and so I'm going to do. It's not like anyone has an unfair advantage in this category, and I'd rather have this award go out than not. And I think everyone understands that it's like, it's not like it's a fucking analytically driven award where we sat down and tested the coaches. It's a fun award, and I'd rather have a fun award than not. So that's my perspective whenever I vote for it. I don't think it does any harm. So I'm going to vote for who I think sounds like they did a good job. And a lot of times it's narratively driven too. Like Jack got it because he took 9th place TL, and like obviously Jack's. I don't know if Jack's the best coach in the league all of a sudden in his first split coaching, but he had a strong story behind him.
Yeah, so it was changed to coaching staff this year too, instead of
that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like here's the thing. I love the idea of awards just because it is more of a celebration. And it's not a negative aspect, and anyone that makes it turns it negative. Like that's just the community. We don't want to talk about that necessarily. I just think that like the fact that it changed to coaching staff, I think is a positive. But it's always going to be a question on like what are we valuing? Like in this case, TL was probably the easiest one because of the positional change that they had, right? But next year, if there isn't going to be a huge change with so many new rosters, like how do you make that decision? And the way I view it is that like the team that can communicate that the best, like with more content, let's just say for whatever reason, a random example, 100 Thieves comes out and just has an entire fucking content show of just like their coaching staffs. Suddenly that would boost their, branding on specifically that aspect of it versus a team that doesn't say a damn thing about it. So like, that's what as you already said about narrative, that's what makes it hard because we have no idea.
Well, that and like, so, for instance, I think a Narrow deserves some acclaim. I mean, let's stop talking about the award specifically. Like,
okay.
I think a Narrow, for instance, is a good person to deserve acclaim because people consistently rate, especially this past year, their rosters as being like a 10th place team or whatever. Like, let's say this roster that everybody's like, well, we don't know what Golden Guardians is doing. If they make playoffs and whatever that replaces the spring split finals or whatever, then I think people should say like, oh, this team did well, and like that's probably a credit to their coaching staff that they were able to take rookies that a lot of people didn't particularly have a ton of faith in and like perform,
So I agree with that. Like here's the thing, because obviously there's going to be just so everybody knows, like I coach with Golden Guardians Academy, so there's a bias tended to that. I felt the same thing, but that's not really an advocacy for the award, right? That goes against it because most of the time, the team, if not all the time, that gets the award is a first or second place team. The success is what people recognize rather than the improvement of the players, which I would.
But I was moving away from the award, right? Like, because we're just talking in general about like
perception of.
I think a Narrow stands as a response to whatever this weirdly potentially translated interview was with Perkz. Is like I think he has a pretty good track record, and he's even like gone outside and of the role that he has with the team to build stuff to try, like tools and assets to try to improve North America as a whole, like. That type of stuff, I think, indicates that coaches can provide value even if they're not a pro player. I also think it depends a lot on what the players are looking for out of it, right? Like somebody who's going to do draft, like I can understand how a pro player would be like, I don't want this guy who does not understand high-level League of Legends or has whatever to be the sole decision maker in our draft, which is potentially how some teams, if not now, in the past have operated, versus, it just, or is this person here to help mediate a discussion between us? And like Bjerg is actually the coach, which is like a thing that a lot of people talked about this year. So just it's like such a broad topic that making that blind statement is, I think, a tough one to hear. And I know LEC players have a very different opinion on coaching than LCS does, as we discussed on our like live episode of Hotline League at Rift Rivals last year with EU coaches and Peter and different people.
Yeah, and one thing that I just want to add this, because I don't want it to seem as though like Perkz is just saying this. What I've read, I thought it was like understandable. I thought it was also just a positive take on the fact that more, ex-pros are moving towards coaching. Like, I love the fact that Golden Glue, Bjergsen, Galen, people will not know for CLG. I forgot what Moon, yeah. Moved into a coaching position, and although it might be a little rough on the first split because the experience is necessary, like they command a lot of respect and they come in with a lot of like inbuilt knowledge from playing previously. Matt is another one, exactly, Empire. Matt coming in as an academy coach as well is really good. So I think I took it as more of a positive, and also I didn't think he was calling it, current coaches check stealers. So that was or at least the ones that he knew about. So that's what I took away from it.
The two takes I throw in there, along with a lot of what we said, was that in the past, and even to this day, I think there is less of a rigid system for testing coaches than there are pro players. Like, there's no ladder for coaches, right?
Yes,
that's just
there should be.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what would that even?
I love it. Somebody should make it.
So there's no well, we got a challenger coach. It should have worked out, and it didn't. Yeah. It's like, well, this is some guy that I did an interview with and looked at his resume. Like, I hired bad coaches during my time when I was with Team Liquid and often hiring people. Like, I misfired plenty of times.
Who?
And I think I found some okay ones. But like, that's just going to happen, I think, more drastically than with players due to that situation. And so I think in the past, there's probably been a larger, especially when the coaching boom started to happen around season 4 and 5, where everyone's like, well, we all need coaches now. Riot's officially made this position. There's probably a lot of people who got opportunities that were not, qualified.
Some people have been coaches only for the cameras. I mean, especially in the early days.
Yeah, I got weeded out because I was a trash tier coach. And then the other thing I was going to say, which is to the caller's point about it not being a good mindset about ex-coaches only, I somewhat agree. I think, to what the point I just said is why I think a lot of people prefer ex-players being coaches, because at least they have this basis that Raz was talking about, where you at least know they have this experience of being a pro player and going through the grind and understanding it. But I think there's plenty of value to be brought from non-traditional or like not ex-pro player coaches, which is why the Perkz interview was a little weird, and this is why I wonder if there's a translation there about how like it's moving to be more like traditional sports by having more ex-pro players, whereas I feel like a lot of traditional sports where there are pro players who are coaches, a lot of the best ones were like collegiate level, like they almost never were like goats, whereas like a lot of the goat players to become coaches don't work out that well.
Yeah, that's actually fair.
Yeah. So what do you think of all this, community?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think that's fair. That it very well could have been a translation error, and also hearing how kind of you're blaming Perkz' mindset on that. I'm less, like, not angry, but like I'm less like irritated towards the comments than I was when I first read them. I didn't really think them fully, I think, at first, and so thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, community. Is there anything you want to shout out or say before we go on to the next caller?
Yeah, as a 100 Thieves fan, I want to thank Golden Guardians for being our academy team for the 2020 season. And we're going to take your academy players and make them into a team that's going to make worlds for the 2021 season.
Raz, any thoughts on that?
Wait a minute. Is he saying thanks to 100 Thieves because they took our team? Wait a minute.
He's thanking Golden Guardians for developing 100 Thieves talent.
Oh, of course. Anytime.
Thanks so much,
I
community.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See ya. Wait, Mark.
What?
We got hard flamed again for being 100T haters.
Wait, what did we say?
No. But this happened, I think, after the last episode. There was.
What did we say?
Yeah, people said that because we were talking about the Golden Guardian stuff, and because we said that we disagreed with Nadeshot's stuff, about how everyone wants you to succeed every year, that we are 100 Thieves haters. And I was getting downvoted in a Reddit thread for I know that people don't go to Reddit, feel like this is petty. But like people legitimately think we hate 100T, which is just not true. I don't hate 100T. Do you hate 100T?
No, I don't hate 100T. I only hate Nade Shot. Duh. I love Papa.
I'm waiting for the next thread now.
It's so weird. People legit out there think this, and then like enough people did that people were just like, "Are you kidding me? That you think you don't?" I'm like, I know I don't hate them. It was so weird. People can go look at my Reddit history if they want to.
Papa goes from giving me a heart to giving me an angry face.
I will say this.
The first half.
I really appreciate, because they have Drake as a co-owner, who's my favorite, Toronto Raptors, super fan and all that. That they have the OVO decal. People will not know that, but that's like the dark gold and black.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what that means, but that's.
Cool. I was just going to return to us being 100. I was going to glaze right over there and say, I mean, I think we're definitely not like 100 Thieves stands, and we don't like hype them up a ton. But I'd say like I don't know how you could hear me talk about Immortals, Dignitas, and CLG and think that somehow 100 Thieves is the team that I take issue with the most.
I mean, in their first year, we gave them an incredible ton of praise for being like the best of all the new franchise teams.
Well, and like we, I feel like we talk with Papa. We give him a lot of credit for their 100 Thieves program, Kelsey and stuff. Like it's just not like a monolith. Like we'll praise the parts we think deserve praise and discuss the parts we don't.
What were the other teams you named that you also like down talk?
I didn't put Golden Guardians in there, but I probably should have.
No, okay, but no, you said IMT and who else?
I said IMT, Dig, and CLG were the three from last year.
Oh,
I think
they don't have fans. They have nobody.
But
who would be mad?
I mean, it's punching down for sure. But I also, I mean, we talk shit about Golden Guardians a little bit. I mean, they have some fans. 100 Thieves, as you can see, the fans fire back.
Oh my goodness! You somehow linked Golden Guardians into it. I was talking about the other teams, damn you.
I was saying that there's you guys got some fans, and I've shit talked Golden Guardians a bunch.
Okay. Yeah, and you heard the fury.
Is Raz just hanging out? By the way,
I tucked my tails between my legs and I ran.
Did we pull Raz as a caller and now he's just here on the?
I don't know. He can leave whenever he wants.
All right, get me out of here.
I mean, you could stay. You could stay. I don't mind you staying here. It's quite nice.
I'm down to chill. I literally don't have a plan, so it's fine.
Great. Mark, you want to go grab our next caller?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, by the way, to some of our more recent subs. Jordan LOL, Dark Alley HT, who says Victorville blows, great. Jamie92, Thangak, Game or Girlfriend, and Mark Larg. Thank you for the Prime. Any other Prime gamers out there? It's always appreciated. Bluejay. Ooh, somebody gifted 5 subs. That deserves more attention than Bluejay does. Omega Diamond Singh, thank you for the Prime. Thank you.
Nice.
It's Gilchrist for the 5 gifted subs. Bluejay, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Ontario, Canada.
And what do you... Wait, Raz is also Canadian. Do you guys have some sort of... are you guys pals?
We are cousins.
Yes, exactly.
Great. You guys go out and tame moose together?
Yep. He built his igloo right next to mine. We've been growing up since we were kids,
Nice.
1,000%.
Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that the TSM offseason, from a management side of things, seemed abysmal, and TSM fans should expect better from TSM. The Sword Art deal took way too long to finalize, and it really cost them.
I mean, the Sword Art deal... Do you want to expand on any of this before I dive in?
Yeah, I can. So I need to be adamant that I'm saying seemed abysmal, just because I have to admit, obviously I don't know everything that goes on within TSM and stuff like that. Just from the outside looking in, it really looked like a really rough offseason for TSM. The main thing, let's just talk about the Sword Art thing. The main thing is that I think that because that deal took so long to solidify, it probably hurt them from having other options once it fell through the first time, that deal, and it probably cost them a lot more to obtain him once Sword Art realized that they had no more options, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying with that or no?
Yes. Yeah. Was there anything else that you?
Yeah, there's a few other things, but I mean, let's I think probably one
the
thing
sword
at a
art
time,
thing
honestly,
is the main
right?
thing you find disappointing.
Yeah, well, there's also the Doublelift thing. Like, I mean, I understand Doublelift hadn't really made up his mind, but if you're TSM, you need to make sure that you know who your AD carry is going to be moving forward, because it hurt them with the EG stuff, you know. And like I said, I can go down a whole rabbit hole here. So, but yeah, let's just start with the sword art thing.
I mean, the reason why it's tough for me on the sword art stuff is because I mean, everything that we had heard made it sound as though there was complicated factors there. Like, it wasn't as easy as like the Perkz and Alfari thing, and so it's really difficult for me to fault them. I mean, Ares, I will fault them because people think I don't ever criticize TSM. I think they did not do a great job of managing fans' expectations. Like, there was this kind of weird back and forth on, you know, Andy tweeting out stuff and saying that he was really excited about things and coming on this show even, and teasing stuff, and then like you hear stuff is falling apart, and then like Peter, it just like it was tough. And I think they were excited. My guess would be TSM was excited at the idea of getting sword art and building this like super team, and they got overzealous, and then things started to get kind of wonky, and you end up with losses your ADC, and your star AD retires, and people weren't expecting Huni. I think like there was probably a lesson there on how to manage this stuff from, I don't know, a fan communication perspective. And I think that's an issue. It's hard for me without knowing the details on what their problems were with sword art to know if it's fair to fault them on that. I mean, it's not like they finalized their roster pretty quickly after the offseason, right? I mean, I think they were able to announce that within basically 1 week of the open signing period beginning. So it's not like this is like late December or early January and they're figuring out what their support is going to be. It just feels that way because we now have like a media culture that I participate in where you like, as things, before anybody has signed any paperwork, people are essentially getting an idea on who's going to be on teams. So that I have a tough time with. I'm surprised you don't fault them more for like, I think a lot of people do think that team is pretty wonky, especially compared to C9 and TL. You know, like that's a place where I am surprised more people aren't being more critical of them.
So yeah, I do like, I have more of that as well. Like, I'm surprised that they went after Huni instead of like Licorice, for example. Like, I don't know if they were I figured they would be interested in Licorice. I thought that you would be able to outbid FlyQuest for Licorice as being TSM, but that didn't happen. I'm not sure if that's because they weren't that interested or what, but that's another area that I think they're definitely at fault.
What is my head looking like, Travis? Okay, you can continue on, but what is this?
Oh, it's the Snapchat filter you.
I didn't have a video. You know, I don't think it's time to disrupt the show to try to get you on video wise, but I needed a placeholder image. Anyway, sorry.
I was gonna say I kind of agree with Travis's point. Like, I think it's understandable for fans to be disappointed in the TSM offseason, whether it's the actual names collected, the way that it happened, which seems to be kind of herky-jerky and not like a smooth acquisition. You can also talk about, it sounds like whatever, we don't know what went down, but some of the drama between Peter and the org and like with the support situation. Like, I think there are a number of things that you could be disappointed in, but since we don't know what happened with sword art in particular, like why there was a holdup, like if it was like, oh, they temporarily got outbid and like lost his interest somehow or something and they had to get it back, or like, you know, it was just a negotiation thing, then maybe you can put that on them for not just wowing him and making him want to sign with them 100%. But if it was anything to do with visas or immigration or the U.S. climate with COVID and stuff, like if it's any of those concerns, they're pretty outside of
yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time faulting a team. The succinct way I should have put it is I'm going to have a hard time faulting a team for taking 1 week longer than other teams to sign a player that probably has like a complicated immigration situation during a pandemic, you know, and is like a star player that perhaps demands a good amount of money.
So I think that's a really good point, but the way that I look at it is we were told, or this was the narrative at least, was that it fell through due to taxation reasons. Is that true? Is that fair to say? Like that's what we heard on Twitter.
I don't know if it's fair to say because I have not heard enough to feel confident in that. Like even the people that were talking about this stuff were like deleting the tweets that they had made about that topic, right? So I just have a hard time like saying this was the problem that they ran into, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. So that's exactly why I worded it seemed abysmal, because again, we don't know everything that went on. My point of view was that it fell through due to taxation reasons. And my thoughts are like, we're going into season 11 now. If you're making a potential deal with someone, you should be able to tell them exactly how much they're going to make going into the next season after taxes and all that stuff. Like this is stuff that like, this shouldn't happen in season 11, in my opinion. This is stuff that should happen in season 3 or 4. So if that was the case, and that's why the deal fell through, that's where I'm a little bit like, come on now. I think that we should be prepared for that. But if that's not the case, then, I mean, you have to give benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah, I mean, even some of the tax stuff, like, I'm a fucking idiot. So, if there's like some weird tax thing going on between China, Taiwan, and the U.S. because Sword Art is, from the LPL or from, Flash Wolves originally.
Yeah.
They were Taiwanese. Like, I don't know what that situation is at all, and like how taxes and things like that would work out between the countries.
Sure, but let's expand to talk a little bit less about the stuff we don't know about and talk instead about the other stuff. I'm actually very curious, Bluejay. What do you think of how everything went down other than Sword Art? Because I think what's very funny to me is I saw this thread on the TSM subreddit, which I quite enjoy that subreddit, and it was like last week. It was like a meme that's like last week, and the person's like, "Oh no, we're getting Hoonie, what the heck?" And then the next week was like, "Oh please, dear God, tell me we're at least getting Hoonie," because it's actually. Maybe they did do a good job of managing the situation because fans, I think, were ultimately scared when it seemed like everything was going to fall through, that they weren't going to be getting anybody. And so then to get Hoonie made people start to feel a little bit better.
So what are you asking exactly?
I guess the question is, like, what do you think of their final lineup? And do you think fans should be happy or relieved? I mean, set aside the Sword Art part, like, what do you think of that?
Yeah. So the lineup seems okay, but I think kind of what you said earlier, like this is not a TSM lineup. Like I think that TSM fans should expect a little bit better. And I do think that it is really funny that like, well, I don't know, if a year ago people would have said TSM signing Hoonie, people would have been full of question marks, right? But now that like Hoonie is the savior is really saying something a lot about, TSM. I think that says a lot.
Are you saying it says a lot about the org or the fans? Who's saying that Hoonie's the savior?
Travis.
No, I didn't.
I'm not saying Travis is saying. I'm saying Travis. Who are you saying is saying he's the savior?
I'm
TSM
saying,
subreddit or something?
The TSM subreddit was like terrified that they might not have a AD or a support or a top laner, because it was like we might not have Sword Art, Hoonie, and Peter may retire. And so I think it's very funny now that 1 week after, not now, but I think it's very funny that 1 week after, people were freaking out about Hoonie, they were begging for Hoonie to end up on the team because they might have not had anybody starting.
Yeah, it's a good point, honestly.
So I'm trying to figure out what the original take is. So you're saying that you are upset. You think that this is an upsetting off season outside looking in for TSM?
I'm saying that for a team that is to the caliber of TSM, like this is one of NA's top orgs, I think that the off season should have been a little bit more smoother.
But I
don't think this would ever happen to C9 or TL, as I would say. I don't think I think that things would be a lot more smooth. And maybe that's easy to say until it actually happens, but I don't see this happening to top orgs.
My concern here is that you said that we should be giving them the benefit of the doubt because a lot of these things are unknown, like the whole taxation thing.
Sure.
Like the way I saw it, kind of like what we've already kind of to wrap it up from what I've been hearing, which is the TSM went for something ambitious, probably one of the more ambitious things, like probably the most ambitious now that I think about it, because even Rookie going to the LPL, even as huge as that was, like it's probably not as big of a competitive shock is to just going straight towards North America in comparison to like Korea to LPL, while you still believe like you can be a champion, on a championship winning team internationally. This one is a huge change, and it's for a $6 million deal. Like among 2 years, right? This is, for me, that was insanely ambitious. So for them to even go for something like this, like, I don't know how much of a rocky road this is, but this is a big win that they have Sword Art.
To me, the reason why they had to spend so much is because their backups were like your second option was no longer Ignar because he had been signed. It was now like Zazel or Hakuho or something like that. And I think that's why Sword Art was able to, get bank. Well, one of the reasons. Of course, he was the world's finalist, right?
I know this is just so. This is my fear, is that like how based in speculation that is, because like Sword Art was what I would imagine like the original run for TSM. Like, he speaks the language. He is a world's finalist support, one of the best supports right now in the world. Like, he's somebody that you would want to go for, and I think it deserves to be asking for this kind of money. Obviously, TSM fans will be having some PTSD because of the previous supports that they've had in Yellow Star and Mythic, but I think that they should be learning lessons from like those days. And Sword Art is a different person, so like I just think that this is for sure a really good pickup for TSM. And I think a lot of the idea, I don't know about you, but I'm just saying a lot of like questioning from the TSM fans come from Lost, trying to fill the shoes of Doublelift. And Lost is a really fucking good AD carry.
100%, I agree.
So the fact that they're able to have Lost, Sword Art, this is all speculation once again, like on the rest of the roster, because I don't know actually how much has been revealed or like have been announced. I mean, I don't know shit from where I am right now, but like they were to have PoE, Spica, and Huni, like that's a top 3 roster, or top 4, depending on how 100 Thieves go. The way I see this is that I think everything is really good from this team, except for like obviously the question mark in the top lane. But if you look at the whole pool of top lanes in the LCS for next year, I think it's gotten like significantly weaker, or at least like just based off of how do I put it, like experience. Obviously, a lot of the players coming in, like a good example is like you have Finn, Fake, God Revenge, Niles, Fudge, a lot of these players that you can say, like a few of them, Fudge is a great example of someone who's like already shown like great strength, but he's going to have like rough times in the Premier League for the first few weeks. So I think that Huni actually should, at least for the first few weeks, look really good. And this team, I think, should be able to play, I'm talking about TSM, should be able to play, Huni style. The Sword Art was on a team that was actually playing towards their top side of the map. So like it feels as though even from a stylistic approach, that they can play towards top. And they have a really strong coaching staff. In fact, that the coaching staff aspect I think is really strong. So I think you're right. Like, I would imagine that getting all of this together would be really difficult because of how ambitious getting Sword Art was. I just thought that at the end product was still good.
I would agree with that too. Even though, like, I totally agree that I actually do think they have a good roster, but I think that the way they got there was not a really smooth offseason, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay. And also, for all the people in the chat saying TSM hater, make up your minds, guys. Like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was a TSM fanboy, and now I'm a TSM hater. Make up your mind, guys. Like,
yeah, welcome to being a personality. You criticize a team that people like, and they're going to say that you hate them. Unless you just say what everyone wants you to say at any given point in time. You are biased and shell and have a huge...
Yeah. Every LCS commentator is biased for and against every LCS org.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Bluejay, for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to a quick break?
No, just thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Okay.
See you, dude.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Have a good one. All right, we're taking a quick break to talk about Alienware. I know, you guys hear me talk about them all the time, but I just want to say thank you to them as we head into the holidays, because I really appreciate so much of what they've been able to do for me this year. I try to be transparent with you guys, and so I'll say we're talking to them basically this month about what next year looks like, and I think because of your support for the show And the fact that so many of you guys have, like, literally during Black Friday sales, so many of you guys hit me up and were like, hey, what's the discount code, or what URL or whatever is it that I can help buy something and support you because I'm looking at getting a new system. And that, I think, is very much appreciated because it reflects in these conversations I get to have with them now around what next year looks like. And, you know, in a world where nobody was doing that, where nobody was using my code and whatever, it would make those conversations a lot more difficult because they might not know how much people actually care about the fact that they're sponsoring this content. So, yes.
Could I also add something into this advertisement?
As long as it does not hurt my relationship with my sponsor. Right.
Oh no. Because I'm not. You know, I would understand that. So I just got the XPS 13 probably a few days ago, actually.
Oh yeah. Which is a Dell product. For those that don't know, Dell owns Alienware.
Yeah. So it's XPS 13 with it's a 2-in-1 with. I even got the stylus, and it is fantastic. It's my favorite laptop. And I just got it. So like the fact that I was able to do that and usurp my previous laptop, which was my favorite laptop, big thumbs up. I would definitely refer this laptop to anybody that's wondering how to get, which one they would get.
Very good. Well, there you go. There's a testament to that stuff. They actually sent me one of those too, as well. Or they recently sent me the same 13 2-in-1 as well. So I appreciate it. Now I have something even more portable. So thank you so much to Dell and to Alienware for their support of my stuff, and thank you to Raz for shouting out their fantastic product. And if you're interested in getting something, be sure to use Travis10OffQ4. That code doesn't always work outside of the US, so just a heads up. And that can save you 10% off. And then also be sure to check out, actually, one thing I can tell you is that if you've been looking for a 3070, I saw today, they just tweeted, they now have systems with 3070s in them. So if you are eyeing a 3070 and you want to get a system that has that in it, you can now officially do that at alienware.com/Travis. Fudge is in the chat. He says, great show, Travis, which I assume means that Fudge wasn't paying attention earlier whenever Raz was talking about him, because I feel like he would have reacted to that.
What? Because Raz was like, all those new top laners coming in are all dumpster trash can players. What? Who's gonna suck for the first couple weeks?
I mean, you did say you thought top lane has gotten worse because of players like Fudge.
Unbelievable. All right, you know the truth. He's been watching.
Yeah. By the way, I do have a 3090 in this system now too. I've switched to this new desktop system that has a 3090 in it. People in the chat talking about the 3000 series. Thank you. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller? Off he goes.
He's already on it.
Yeah. Thank you to It's Gilchrist for the 5 gifted subs. Omega Diamond Zinc for the 25 months. Lots of people hitting 25 months. I guess last month a lot of people hit 24. Roxthag, thank you for the sub. Santaro, thank you for the 5 months.
Hello.
TMKHS and Jim Short Sun. Appreciate it. Mark has returned triumphant with GorRok. Why is your name GorRok?
It's just I change usernames a lot. Magical Quaz is probably easier.
Okay. Oh, your Magical Quaz from the Twitch chat. Thank you for being a sub. I'm worried because I feel like you've been trying to start stuff on this episode.
No.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ithaca, New York.
Ithaca. I've been to Ithaca. Do you go to Cornell?
Yeah, what's poppin'?
Nice. I went there one time.
I went to RIT. I drove through Ithaca a few times.
Oh, nice.
It's not bad. What do you want to talk about on the show, GorRok?
My topic is basically like, given the pipeline in NA, it's always going to be like talent and like talent development is always going to be behind other leagues, and therefore like North America as a league scene is always going to be behind other leagues.
So we're just doomed.
Well, I mean, we might have like a golden generation, like that Mammoth team for like OCE or like Flash Wolves for Garena, but for just like outside of relying on stuff like that, kind of.
Why do you think that our development scene will just always keep us behind?
I think it's just like the way it's adapted, like even with the new format changes, what I think are sick. I love the coaches in the scene. Everyone, like people in the scene are not the problem. I think it's just like the way that it's functioned and like how far behind it's been just going up until now. like there's a lot of catching up to do, and other scenes are always innovating and always going forward. I think it's not insurmountable, but certainly like as time goes on, it's just going to be harder and harder for like people to catch up.
Can I start with this one?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you make most sense as an academy coach, so.
Because I enjoy the fact that this call has come in now. I know that you just referenced the new changes, right? But also even adding to the fact that like Oceania now being North America, not only just in League of Legends, but of course just like, you know, geographically speaking.
Yeah, we just closed the ocean.
Exactly. I think talent development is actually in a pretty good spot. It should be. I shouldn't say it is, because we really just depends on how the actual system actually progresses, and also if the players that are going through that system are reasonably improving. Another addition to this is also in-houses that have only really grown, which is great to see. Not even just like the core JJ in-houses, but also just I've been watching the earlier in-houses for the East Coasters with Revenge, Dardoch, and all that. And a lot of it is incorporating amateur players and going through reviews that I think are insanely beneficial to players like that. Like when Golden Guardians Academy got in GorRok and then got in Chime, and this is just not to them, but like everyone that's new and comes into the scene, like it is a huge influx of information that goes through them about like a premier, like, you know, competitive environment. Even if they've already been on that in an amateur level, it is a completely different game. So I actually would say that that I'm expecting it to really boom in the next 2 years. I think that we'll see a lot more, and I think that, you know, the academy system, quote unquote, will actually have a much easier flow of talent from amateur to academy, because now teams will be forced to do what, you know, what happened with Mad Lions, which is, oh, my top laner just got beat by this guy. This is swapperoo. So I think the direct competition is always the major benefit. So to your point, yes, we are behind because of it, and it's due to natural reasons. If we're comparing ourselves to Korea and China, is huge machine and large population size for these servers. But the biggest reason, another big reason, not the biggest, that's a lie. Another big reason was because of the system underneath the major league. And I think that we finally moved that kind of pillar and budge that's making it better.
By the way, I have a random question, Raz. Sorry, GorRok.
What's up?
But do we know, are the core GJ in-houses taking place on the tournament server? Like, are those all low ping?
It's live. It's live.
Why aren't they doing it on the low ping ones?
Because they're also including like academy and amateur players as well that do not like.
If we're talking when I interviewed Anero, it sounded like you guys had negotiated so that academy and amateur could play on those servers.
The other thing that could be true right now is that the tournament realm servers usually stop getting updated in preseason because they don't want to devote resources to like putting all these patches into a server that people aren't technically using.
And also there's a list of, like, for instance, they gave them a number of accounts, or like they're saying this is how many players you can bring on per team. And so if you're just bringing on, which is like any amateur player that wants to play that's being vetted, you're not going to be able to give them an account on time. So there's a lot of basically barriers to that.
Empire and Kelsey also said in Twitch chat that not all the players are in the country right now, so it's not even like, you know, LA server is guaranteed to be the best for a lot of people. So I'm sure it's a bunch of these factors put together. Maybe Tournament Realm has been updated and I'm wrong, but I remember at the end of the year after Worlds, Tournament Realm basically died and it stopped getting updated, and all the accounts get wiped once the season starts again, and so you'll have to hand out those codes.
I mean, it would be nice. Like the logistical stuff. When I hear logistical reasons for why we can't, you know, have an ideal environment, I always just want those to get solved. Because, like, if we spend all this time talking about how bad ping is, and then it's like, okay, well, we have a solution to that, and then people can't do it. I mean, I know you can't fix somebody who's on the East Coast.
Travis.
Yeah, I get that, but I would hazard a guess that the majority of people that are playing in these in-houses would benefit from being able to play on the West Coast server.
I mean, once again, I don't think that's the biggest benefit of being in the in-house server for the new players. If we're talking about new players coming in, like amateur academy or new academy players, the biggest benefit is being in these review sessions with more experienced players, or even not even like the post-game reviews, but also just being in game,
like in lobbies and
yeah,
exactly.
Some of the draft stuff too is also pretty useful from what they've been doing.
I'll say to go back to some of the original points of the caller and about being behind. Travis, remember that great Doublelift interview from season 1, season 2 about how Korea
I was about to say. I just thought that.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead and say what it is.
So if no one's ever seen this interview from season 2, it was on. I think it was on State of the League way back in the day, and
yes. Korea
was playing in like some IEMs, and they were good, but they weren't dominating. And Doublelift said, and I might butcher this a little bit, but that they would never catch up because NA has an extra year of experience on them, and they would always have that extra year of experience, and there's no way to get that year back. And Korea would just always be behind NA.
Yeah, I'm sad because I thought of that as the call, and I didn't get to it in time. But yes, it was a perfect example. I mean, and you can take that interview, but you can also take like people thought Korea would only ever dominate, and then there's they started to be kind of weak for a while, and people thought LEC. I'm going to piss off all of the EU LCS callers right now. But for a long time, a lot of people felt like EU LCS and NA LCS were like the same tier, and they were just both dramatically behind Korea and China. And now LEC is undisputedly better than North America and is a pretty big contender with
after
LCK.
China won the last 2 finals. It's now they're the best, in LCK is going to be playing second fiddle.
Wait a minute. So okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I've only, as being when I was in China at the time, or even Oceania, I've only heard the debates that it was between Europe and China being second place. At what point in time was North America in that discussion? Was that season 2? I think season 2.
Nobody ever said North America was second place. Everyone just thought EU was as shit as North America.
In 2014, EU got no seeds out of groups, and then they got 2 in TSM and C9. So there's a period of time around 2015 as well. I mean, they had a lot better showing.
This is the problem when we do this stuff. It's like when we said
rivals.
that. It's like when we said that there was a time on the last episode that Doublelift was considered like a top 2 ADC in the world. It's because we have all these people that started watching in 2017, and they're like, "What are you talking about? That has never been the case. How dare you besmirch the integrity of my teams in my region?" And it's like, okay, well, we've been covering this a little longer than you've been watching.
But anyway, to the caller's point, like, I agree the gap in NA is a serious issue, and I don't believe we'll ever be like hands down the most dominant region in the world. But to say that like our talent development pipeline will always be behind some of these other regions, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe the EU scene collapses for some reason, but North America goes strong, and then we're in a totally different, in environment. So you just never know. But I would say there are issues that Raz was talking about that go beyond just systemic fixes that NA has to deal with, and those are much harder to improve. And I think it's fair to be relatively pessimistic, but I think the moves in the right direction are all good.
Yeah.
I think that stuff is fair. A lot of my things are actually more on the structural side because there are things we can't fix, and I've never really focused on them, like the server size and stuff like that. Like, we're going to be smaller probably for a while, whatever. That's fine. Can't change that. But like stuff like one of the reasons I was really happy Raz stuck around was like Demacia Cup and like Kespa Cup and tournaments where like even amateur players and like lower tier, I guess LSBL teams at the time, LDL now, would play like high up like Chinese teams or high up Korean teams. Like, I don't think I've ever been more hype than like when Snake and King, even though Sky wasn't as good as I wanted them to be. Like, I've never been as hyped as like when they like did really well in Demacia Cup, and like stuff like that isn't really here in League, at least in North America. They're like, that's why the amateur tournament, like, I'm really hype about that, but like they're still not putting in like LCS teams and like other teams where like so academy players can like outperform like current NA like LCS starters and people like that. That's why like those are some more structural changes that I was like a little bit more focused on. But this is still like a really great discussion.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's a world where you can mimic relegation in some form. Like, I don't know if it's good or bad for the league if we're sending like Dignitas or like, let's say Golden Guardians doesn't do well next year with their roster, like down and they're getting beaten by Cloud9 Academy or something like that. I don't know if that's good for the league that it would look that way, but I also think that it does put pressure on teams to perhaps make rosters that are not embarrassing. I don't know.
I think it'd be okay because it's at least all still kind of in the same pool of talent, so to speak. I think it'd be really bad if some EU master teams came over and slapped NA like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th teams.
Oh god, like fucking what was that all Chinese team?
LQ, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
I mean, at least they didn't win anything.
Yeah.
Technically, they made Worlds, but yeah.
Anyway, GorRok, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to our next caller?
Shout out Raz. I used to watch China Talk a shit ton back in the day. You, Frost, Drexen, etc. Oh, Karen, not Karen. Kelsey Moser's here too. Shout out to Travis, you too. I've been watching since I think State of the League, even like when I didn't actually watch League.
Yeah.
But shit, like every time after Worlds, I stop watching League just because it's so sad. But Summer, your content's always there. It's always really good.
Nice.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for the call.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks for sticking around to After Worlds this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, my name is Travis Gafford, and this is Whose League Is It Anyways? With myself, Alex Penn, Gnome San, all these.
Oh shit, deep cuts.
Nick Allen.
Who else?
Nick Allen and Shocks.
Nick Allen. Shocks,
awesome.
there we go. Fantastic.
Yeah. The good old days. Back before Shocks just skyrocketed into the stratosphere and left me far beneath her, begging for subs on my Twitch stream. Thank you to It's Gilchrist for gifting a sub to D-Weebs. And if anybody else has a Prime Gamer sub, I'd love to get that Prime Gamer sub from you, because I don't have big budget deals with Red Bull and MasterCard. And MrDongStrong is here. MrDongStrong, where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on?
Ooh, you're loud. You're very strong.
Mr. Dongstrong doesn't hold back.
Holy shit.
Where are you calling from?
Is my mic okay now?
Yes, I turned you down, but continue.
Okay, all right. I'm calling from Seattle.
From Seattle, nice. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was with both Doublelift and Bjergsen retiring, the record for the most individual LCS titles won't be broken for at least another 25 years.
What?
With the new LCS changes, the new format changes. Because think about it, Doublelift has 7 titles, Bjergsen has 6, and each player can only win a possible of 1 trophy per year, right, as opposed to 2. Right, so it's gonna take twice the amount of time that it is for somebody to surpass Doublelift and Bjergsen's LCS title record, right?
So
it's actually going to take. No.
Okay, hang on. I'm not saying you're wrong, but my answer is it is difficult to know. It depends entirely on how Riot plans to position this qualification tournament to MSI, because now supposedly there's going to be a tournament that qualifies people to MSI that does happen in the middle of the season that will feel like spring split finals, but is ultimately not spring split finals because there is no spring split, and so whatever. Yeah. So if they decide to position that as like this is a tournament that awards a trophy that is on par with what spring, and we consider these to be champions for, like if they do that somehow, which I think is pretty hard to do narratively, given that like you're now saying that all these games matter equally all the way up to summer, then that would work. But
so
I don't know.
People in chat generally want the spring things to still matter, like in terms of Empire and Fudge saying that. But I will say, to the caller's point, even if the spring split does matter, just half his point, right? So instead of being 20 to 25 years, it's 10 to 15 or 10 to 12 or something.
My original statement said 15, but I kind of wanted to go a little extra.
I mean, either way, if you're right and there's only one title, then it's 20 to 25. If you're wrong and there's two titles still, I mean, your take still plays the same. It's just now 10 years. So yeah. I think either way we can talk about this.
I think Should we, Mark? Should we talk about even if it should count, or is that just a side topic that we should talk about?
Will they be adding a title for, or sorry, not a title, like a trophy for the qualification? Because I thought it was just a qualification tournament for MSI.
I don't know. All of the things that I know, has been said. All the things I know that I can discuss publicly have been said publicly about this, and so when Riot reveals this information in the future, we will know more. But that to this point in time, like I don't know about how they plan on. Actually, even with the information I don't know, or that I do know that I can't talk about, I don't know how they're planning on categorizing that tournament.
Assuming.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say, just assuming that the tournament structurally is similar to spring finals or like the spring playoffs and whatnot, I would want the title to count. I think to your point, Travis, it is a little hard to figure out the term to use because you can't say spring champions when it's half. Like maybe you say mid-season champs or something, or maybe there's a title you can come up with that makes it work. But assuming that the difficulty level is the same, that's what I care about the most. Is like, okay, you had to win a series of best of fives to be crowned the champion. If you have to do that,
I think the problem is I think it's like I think it counts as like a mini trophy in my opinion, because it's not even an event that sends you to Worlds.
So it's not an LCS championship, and that's what matters when it comes down to the history books. It's one of those things that whenever I see like there's been a change for a tournament format in like the NBA or something like throughout times, like what matters, actually more so WWE, but more to the point is that either you change the wording of it or it just goes back to the point of this guy has this many LCS championships. And to the caller's point, if you're just going for one long season, then you take away the frequency of it. So that's true. It's fair. Whoever wants to hit that record, you gotta enlist Xmithy fast. That's what
I was about to say.
I think actually, I think what you do is for like an episode like Run It. Like we just did these Run Its on like Doublelift and Bjergsen's career. I think what you do is you probably have two different categories. You have like trophies lifted, and then you have championships won. And I think the championships won is you're only going to be able to get one championship win a year now, is my opinion. You can get multiple trophies a year because maybe you win multiple tournaments. But I don't know if you can get multiple championship wins. It's kind of like what Raz was saying.
My take on these things is I care much more about the spirit of the tournament than like the narrative of it, which is the same reason I take issue with some of the OG Worlds, was because they were so far removed from what the actual format of and difficulty level of what Worlds became. And it's how I'd feel about this. If it is a different event, like legitimately ran differently, different rewards, people start preparing for it differently. If it's different, then I don't like it being counted the way spring used to count. But if it's effectively the same thing, but we just now combine the splits, then I would like to find a way to continue to count them. Like I said, whether that means you call it a mid-split champion or victor, or I don't fucking care. But if you're playing a 16 best of 5 elimination tournament that plays exactly like spring and qualifies you to MSI, it's literally just the spring championship. It is the same thing.
Okay, well, anyway, let's move on to the second.
I'm just saying, except for whoever's at 10th place, now is already set to the back of the line in the next split.
It feels fucking terrible for the losers, I'll give you that.
Yeah. I saw a couple of people in the chat asking, like, to elaborate on, like, 15 and 25.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's talk about your take.
Yeah, so, like, essentially, like, I guess now I have to say hypothetically now. Hypothetically, if the new format is one trophy, one championship every single year. If some new player comes in North America and say, I want to get more trophies than Doublelift or more LCS championships than Doublelift ever has, which is 7, then that player has to win 8 straight years in a row in order to win it in the fastest amount of time, right? So like obviously being that dominant for 8 years in a row isn't really realistic. So that's why I came up with this sort of like 15-20 range.
I mean, the thing is, who else is close, right? Like
Xmithy.
Xmithy's close, but I mean, we'll see. He's not. We haven't heard on the team.
Right? He's not even starting on an LCS team.
Yeah. So who else would be like in the next range?
Impact is 4.
I think there's a host of people at 4.
No, Jensen didn't win a lot for a long time. I was just thinking of like
2.
big names, but Twitch
Turtle
chat.
has 4.
Turtle has 4. Impact has 4. Jensen only has 2.
I feel like there's some.
Yeah, there's going to be some
2.
player that we're not thinking of that's been around for a long time. But actually, so many of the old guard just retired, or like are not starting this year. So like, it's going to be really hard now, I think.
It really does feel like a new era, like with the format changes on top of.
Yeah, no, 100%. 2021 is basically a reboot of the LCS in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So you're kind of right. I mean, especially depending on how they count the championship thing, it's going to be really hard to hit that level.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because actually there's multiple ways of thinking about it, because not only is it just there's less opportunities, but also like, man, you have to be like, if you're creating a dynasty, that dynasty has to withstand like twice as long as the previous dynasties for these other teams,
Yeah, that's why I hope that they can maintain some semblance of normalcy between the changes in this potential format, just because otherwise you have to start really thinking about the, like you said, 2 different eras. Like, it's just not even fair to compare.
I'll just say that that's already the case, though, because like from, I would imagine, season 3 to season 4, like you just had players who are winning IEM championships and winning IPL championships, and so there'd be like a huge trophy case for players who were like Moscow 5 players or WE players that now you can never really hit that same amount of trophies. So I just think that we've normalized that era where you're like, internationals are now just 2 trophies throughout an entire year. So we just gotta have if the new changes are big, that will be normalized in like a year or 2, I think.
That's a good point.
MrDongStrong, thank you for the call. I thought this was really interesting, and it put an idea into my mind that I had not really considered. I think maybe it had been buzzing around a little bit, but this is a great way of coming at it. So it definitely gives me a question to ask Riot whenever I finally get a chance to talk to them about this stuff.
Yeah, I'd actually like to expand it one more time if I could.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, do you think that like when comparing, potential future great players down in the road, do you think that maybe potentially players like Doublelift and Bjergsen could potentially be compared to somebody like Bill Russell in the NBA? So for those of you who aren't aware, Bill Russell, he was an NBA player back in like the 1940s and the 50s, so very, very early on in the NBA's, is in it when the NBA was in its infancy. But people tend to hold something like Michael Jordan's 6 championships to a much higher value than Bill Russell's 11. So, again, like hypothetically, if we do have this 1 championship, 1 trophy a year format moving forward into the future, at what point do you value less championships over the raw amount of championships that players like Doublelift and Bjergsen had in the 2 splits per year era?
This is a Raz and Mark thing because I'm not a traditional sports boy.
I mean, like in general, first of all, I think these retirements that we've been seeing, including Uzi's, does mean we should have like a Hall of Fame for league. And it should be global. I know that LPL is doing a Hall of Fame for themselves, but fuck that. We should have a global Hall of Fame. It's a global sport. Like, it's something that there are so many. That's what made esports, honestly, for me, better than other traditional sports where you are watching every other region's games. You are a fan of every other region's games. So like, you're seeing them in their own region succeed, and you just want to be able to like kind of celebrate that. So to kind of answer the question, yeah, like I do think that they'll be seen as like the GOATs for years to come because they were the best in their craft for so long. And I think that for the Zoomers of the future, we want to, a Hall of Fame to kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
I think it's also fair to the point about eras is to think about them that way too. I mean, what was good in season 1 and season 2 from a skill level and an achievement level is not really the same thing in season 4, 5, and now 9 and 10. Like before the Eastern regions were recognized as regions, those international tournaments were a lot easier to win. And nowadays it's like, holy fuck, if you can beat a Korean and Chinese team in a best of 5, you're actually dope as hell. And I think the standards change with the times for me. So like, I think that's something that to keep in mind when you start talking about greatest players of all time. Like MJ didn't win more than Bill Russell, but fuck if people don't recognize the greatness.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to our next caller?
No, just thank you guys for having me on the call.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
All right.
Can we just say that guy sounded suspiciously like Sneaky?
Did he?
I don't think so.
He sounded a little bit too much like Sneaky there.
I gotta re-listen to the call. I wasn't picking up on that.
I hard disagree. This is not accurate.
What?
I guess Raz getting some love in the chat.
Papa Smithy says, Raz, hello?
What? He was insanely like Sneaky. I was having problems when he was laughing, dude. I was like, when he laughed like that, I was like, no way, please.
Smitrix, thank you for the Prime and so many things. Thank you for the 32 months and the Prime.
I need to get out more, but like, what does that have to do with the point at hand here? Huh?
I mean, you're not supposed to get out right now. We're under stay-at-home orders.
Have a walk with oh yeah, you're
still in LA right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You sound happy about it. Prongs99 is here. Prongs, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York right now.
From Brooklyn, New York. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I kind of want to talk about basically the top 3 teams in the LCS, and I'm really looking at C9 and Team Liquid look really strong, and what that means for the bottom teams in the league. So I know we have a lot of teams that are more budget oriented this year with weaker rosters.
We call those development oriented.
Yes, and that's actually a point I was going to bring up about development teams, specifically like Golden Guardians. Just kind of what that means for those teams, and like kind of if they have a place. Because I know like Golden Guardians specifically, I remember when they first came into the league, Hunter, with that whole roster centered on high, like everybody was spending big, but Golden Guardians kind of a bit more tempered there. Hunter kind of talked about how Golden Guardians were more developmental at the time. And that kind of became true because look what happened last season. They had a really good team, and now their whole team got shipped off to 100 Thieves because of what I assume is like budget reasons, kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's basically said as much on Hotline League and on the video that he put out.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if you have these teams that are kind of developing talent, what happens when another team with a higher budget buys them off? How do these lower teams develop fans? And then another point is that we also have a lot of kind of rookies coming into the league. So with all these strong teams, fans kind of have to expect that teams are going to look weaker than what they might actually be.
So I want to focus on your first point rather than your second point at first, at least, and then you can remind me to go back to it if we need to. But I think you raise a really good point, which is in traditional sports and in other places, there is a reason to care about the teams even if the roster changes dramatically, right? Because those teams do a good job of establishing brands for themselves because they are rooted in locations, and you just like your whole family becomes a fan of them. I know Mark has multiple sports teams that I forget that he is a fan of and his family are fans of. I don't know. Anyway, that doesn't exist in the LCS really, and so it becomes a huge issue whenever, okay, I was a FlyQuest fan last year, and now am I still a FlyQuest fan? Because like whatever. The reason I bring up FlyQuest though is because I do think that their brand they succeeded in 2020, I think, in a way that we have never seen another team succeed in the league in terms of establishing a brand, which is amazing because they went from being like a joke to like actually I think the gold standard of what to do to say, you are this. I think next year people will know, like FlyQuest will continue to feel a lot like FlyQuest in a way that like if you throw out all the players from another team, it becomes kind of difficult. Not to bring up a bunch of stuff that we've talked about on the show previously, but Mark and I have discussed how Golden Guardians did kind of an okay job with like certain visual elements and branding and the pictures that they've had.
Oh, right.
But not like a great job in comparison to somebody like FlyQuest. I think 100 Thieves is kind of like 100 Thieves has built like a higher level brand that I don't think has always done a great job of trickling down to what their like league team is. But there's kind of something there too. So I think it's going to be really important. Like if you are a team like at Dignitas or Golden Guardians or something like that, I think your initiative should be, okay, we have now decided. I think previously, by the way, the vast majority of the LCS teams were all saying, we're a world's contender. And like only this year and going into next year have we seen teams start to say, guess what? We're not a world's contender. We're going to try to build this team. And so I think it's going to be very important for those teams that decide they're not world's contenders to start giving their fans something else to care about and a reason to like root for their team, even if they're not necessarily going to be, hey, my name is Steve and I just spent $5 million to win this split or this year.
I don't know if Raz has something he wants to throw in before I give my angle on it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's a portion of fans who want to see younger talent. It's not going to be every single fan, but there are the Tom Shoes of the world who want just to see the young guys in there. And you can probably get those people as fans just by putting in Yasui or whoever they think deserves their shot, you know? And the marketing that you make around this player then is not, is he going to be the best in his first split? But like, hey, what's it like playing your first games? What is it like doing this? And so your narrative really changes to present what the pro player is going through as a younger player versus, you know, it's the 10th time we watched Doublelift in a micro series, a mini series about the scene, you know, like there's fresher, newer things you can try and present to fans and different storylines. So I think that can be a way to secure fans. I think your storyline should change every year based off what your team's actually trying to do. So if you are a contender, or maybe you didn't even think you're going to be a contender, but you start being a contender, you know, you start pushing out different messaging and these kinds of things. To your point about the budgets, though, which is a concern, that some teams will kind of just get feasted by bigger teams. It's possible. I mean, this happens in most sports. You know, big market teams get the big name players. That's probably going to happen in League to some degree. I mean, I don't really know if there's anything really to say to it, but that's just how it is. It's a bigger issue.
Those other teams will have the last laugh when the big spenders all go bankrupt. And they're like, haha, now we're the number one teams because Steve spent too much investor money. And now his empire has collapsed.
So, like, there are teams like Energy Pacemakers for the LPL in the old days. I'm trying to remember the other team. Xenix Storm is probably a good example. Like, teams that I would consider like farming teams that would do the finding of good talent, but then would never kind of naturally reap the rewards or be able to build a lasting brand. I don't think that Golden Guardians were that simply based off the messaging, because it's not like as if it was like, oh yeah, this is just who we are. It was more like it was even presented from by Hunter that this was just a complication because of what's happening in the NBA for the year, and there was an intent to keep the team together. So like those are the type of things that I like hearing, and it does blow, because you're right. If you don't have players, even just one player, right, that is sticking with the team from split to split, then you're just basically pressing the restart button on your branding. The only way that I would see in which a team can actually somehow retain like a fan base or create a fan base around it, as you mentioned, FlyQuest has done a great job around creating those initiatives. To be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm a fan of this in daily life, right? Like being able to talk about the environment if I'm a politically minded or like environmentally minded, I mean. Now I have a team that I can immediately just kind of cling to as my side piece, or even just as a primary fan. But Golden Guardians have been kind of pushing through with content, like video content. Just 100 Thieves has been doing it too, but like Golden Guardians, like mini documentary has been fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so if you just see more content, something that you can see, maybe merchandise that people can be more like a big fan of, and if they do incredibly well at being able to get the personalities from like players like Nile, who I know has a great personality, out to the fans immediately, then you can get like a cult fan base. But yeah, just to answer the question quickly, like, yeah, if you completely overhaul your lineup, good luck. You're never going to be able to reach the top three teams in branding. But I wouldn't say that Golden Guardians are necessarily that, unless if that kind of continues on. If that just happens for the next few splits, then it's kind of doomed.
I think another interesting team to look at is probably like last year with Dignitas 2019. How that after the roster they had in summer, like Demonte, Vulcan, Cody Sun, how they kind of just completely swept their gauntlet. I think they were really looking to be like a kind of a fan team. Like a lot of fans were looking to them, like to kind of see what they would do in the next season. And their roster completely blew up, and then Dignitas didn't really retain much fans from that. So it kind of was interesting to see with FlyQuest, like they really had branding focused around FlyQuest and not focused on the players, which I think was really interesting.
Yeah,
and
it's
kind
smart.
of cements them in the league.
Yeah, I just don't think. I mean, I think Kelby said this last week. FlyQuest is the only team that knows who they are in the LCS and what they stand for. I mean, like, I get that there are going to be people that take issue with that, but like, Steve will say winning and excellence, and Cloud9 will say winning and excellence, and TSM will say winning and excellence, and like, okay, people like winner, like you should be trying to win if you're spending that much money. It's not like a big brand, you know. Now that doesn't mean that they haven't done good branding work in certain areas, right? Like I think Cloud9 has done some cool stuff around trying to build, you know, like a sort of little league thing, or like TL has great merch. 100T has great merch. Like, sorry, they don't have merch; they have apparel. I remember this is why, if I do hate 100T, this is why I hate them, because I've been told I can't say merch; I have to say apparel. But and TSM has like their websites and stuff, I guess. But like ultimately, those are not great. It's very difficult to latch onto a team for those reasons. And like, if you did surveys of people and you say, what do you think of when you think of FlyQuest, and what do you think of when you think of Cloud9? I think frequently people will list the players on Cloud9, whereas people will list the branding elements of FlyQuest. So,
yeah, I mean, I will say this though. The correlation is going to be there for FlyQuest, because while they made this initiative, they were also insanely successful competitively. So like next year, if they just, you know, are booty, if they just shit, then like that's probably the most important thing. Kind of recognizing, wait a minute, is this branding mean something? Because to your point, I would disagree with like the idea with Kelby saying, is because like at the end of the day, you have like teams that are trying to be competitive. There's no team that's going into the split and saying that we can't make it a Worlds. And so the 100 Thieves, I think, has a good branding already. Like they already have a really successful one that you already mentioned from other games, but also just from their apparel line. Yeah, like FlyQuest, I'd love to see if they can still retain fans if they struggle, though I think they have a good team as well. But I think a lot of the fan base is just there for a successful team.
I also think that, like, kind of with the players themselves, teams should kind of help them build a brand around themselves, but also the team. And I think one like good example of that kind of helps the branding of the team is Vince Guerin from last season. I think he should have gotten a raise for his genius in banger tweet Live Evil, because EG wasn't doing that well, but I think everybody knew the hashtag Live Evil and banger tweet from Sven throughout the whole split. Like that's just a good example of kind of a player heavily branding around the team and not just the player itself. That kind of can retain fans, but teams need to help the players, brand for the teams.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we're running a little low on time. We got 2 more calls to go. But Prongs, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
Just want to shout out Alienware, of course, alienware.com/Travis, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. By the way, everybody that does that, we should let you know that I'm legitimately having somebody cut together a compilation of all the times fans have shouted out this stuff, especially in the past like 10 or 20 episodes, so that when we talk to Alienware about 2021 stuff, they can see just like the fat compilation of that. Is it Nako? Is that your name?
It's NakoV, but you can call me Nako. Anything is fine.
NakoV. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Philly. Yes, that's about it. Yep.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to say that CLG would have been like a top tier team if HotshotGG was still like a top decision maker in CLG, like Regi is in TSM, or like Steve in TL, or Jack in C9. And I think this is you can probably see this in CLG if you go back in CLG's history, like 2015, 2016 CLG, before Madison Square Garden bought a majority of this, controlling share, I believe, from CLG, and then HotshotGG kind of shied away from the scene. I think that was the moment I think CLG started slipping in my sense, because they kind of lost leadership or a primary target. Okay, maybe the way I'm saying is that when you lose like such a figure, like a leadership figure, they lose a target. So in terms of Steve, you always know that he always comes out and says, "We want to win worlds," and no matter what, he always leads the team to making sure that they win worlds, and he will do whatever that he has to do to make sure that happens. And I think CLG has lost that type of leadership and that type of
They don't have like a gamer leader boy, much like a lot of the other good teams have.
Right.
Yeah. I love this take. Oh, did you have
I hate this take.
No, and I'm somewhere in the middle.
Look. So, like, I love the idea. So we can just go on to my. I want to hit my point too, because I think the
you're giving yourself the floor. You're like, we could just go on to what I'm saying.
Raz is a guest too. He's interjecting. Objection.
I'm a host here. Oh, thank you very much. I think that losing a central face hurts your brand, and this like really deeply hurts your brand. I thought
but he was talking about winning.
Yeah, and that's why. Okay, now if you want,
so you're trying to change the topic.
Maybe.
So we should go with my take first, and then we can get to you later.
All right.
Which is
my take. I'll let you have the floor, Travis.
My take is Mark is a jerk because I like Hotshot and I don't want to flame him, but I now feel like I have to speak.
I have seen a take like this a number of times over the past couple weeks. I don't know if it's always been Nako or not, but I felt like I had to take one eventually, and so here we are.
Wake up, Mr. West!
I mean, I'm not flaming HotshotGG.
No, you are saying good things. I now have to disagree with you, which is tough. Hopefully the scam train in chat will help finish, and then I'll be good. Okay, so I disagree with this because I don't think that the success that CLG had in 2015 and 2016 was because of Hotshot, based off of my understanding of the way that roster functioned at the time. Like, people forget about Chris, the coach that was with CLG at that time, but I remember people giving him a lot of praise for
Tony
for that. Tony, it was mostly that team and it kind of coming together finally after years and years and years of it. I mean, we had Kelby on the show last week to talk about Peter's time, but like there were years and years of CLG getting pretty close to being good and then just always sucking that finally got to that. And like Hotshot was, to my knowledge, not actively involved in the creation of those rosters, especially at a certain point. And so I do not think that and we should. Let's also define really quickly who. What?
Nothing. Sorry. Go ahead.
Let's also define really quickly who at CLG right now are making decisions around the rosters. Since the Madison Square Garden pickup occurred, my understanding has been a combination of Nick Allen when he was there, a friend of mine, but perhaps didn't build the best rosters. Trinity, who has been there for a very long time, even before Madison Square Garden was there, but I don't think has won anything since he arrived or created that compelling of a roster. Seems like a nice guy. Like, I hate being put in positions like this where somebody who's nice I have to speak critically of, but like I don't think he's had any competitive success while he's run a lot of the competitive side of CLG, at least in the league side. Now they have Tafu over there, and then like you can talk about whether or not Weldon or some of their other coaches have been involved. Like, none of the people on this list have been able to do much. Now, part of that might be because Madison Square Garden is not giving them the budget that they need, though I believe that they will probably be middle to high end of the numbers, depending on how you calculate it this coming year. But, like, I Like, I don't. In my opinion, if Madison Square Garden is guilty of anything, it is not throwing out a lot of the people that have been running the competitive side and haven't found the results over the past couple of years. That is where I think they are guilty.
Nako, can you mute as well? You're getting a little bit of
Yeah. I just muted. I just saw that.
Yeah. I was gonna say also to go even prior to further back, like Hotshot wasn't running, and this is my understanding. He wasn't in charge of a lot of the day-to-day stuff, even further back. I think his mom took over as CEO for a period of time.
That was
and then
a
there was
very
also
brief period of time.
There's also the Melixia era. Right? Like there was a number of people who, prior to the Madison Square Garden sale, I heard that they had issues. Like I had heard rumors back then when I was, more ingrained in the scene that there were these problems with CLG. Like, can they pay their players? Or is like I felt like almost every offseason I heard that their rosters were going to blow up or something. And so I think this is one of the reasons that Regi gets a lot of credit is because when he had all the eyeballs on TSM, he really locked down everything for them. Not just on a competitive level, but on a team branding level and all these things to become one of the most successful orgs in the league. And I don't know if that ever happened with CLG, which it does all feed into each other. It's not strictly competitive, but it's all of that combined to go out and be able to make that happen. And I think the stuff that happened with CLG was a lot of things going right at the right time. I think like Zix was really important. Obviously, Doublelift was a beast. I think they managed to find their stride. And then that next roster also had some carryover with some really good talent, but then it just never reclaimed that. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree, but.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're just talking about the wording of this one, which is obviously the purpose of it.
Wait! Before Raz, you take us in a different direction. I think Nako.
No, I'm going to the same fucking direction. Okay,
no. Wait! I want to hear what Nako was about to say to kind of cap this off, and then let's go in your same direction, which is actually a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I did after getting some insight from Travis and also Mark from the behind the scenes, which I'm not aware of. I kind of understand what you guys are saying, and I kind of agree. But I would like to say that. Perhaps the victory that CLG did in 2015 and 2016 probably was, like you said, they came together and it was the right time at the right moment and everything was correct for them and they did it. But I do think the lack of CLG's prominence or their standings, they could have been like a top standing team. And I think the lack of that is because they lack a strong leadership like Regi, Steve, or Jack. And I still stick with that because I think if CLG had someone like that, they could have been potentially a top tier league team. But I also think since the Madison Square Garden acquired them, now I do know that, I don't know if it is correct, but I've heard that when majority of the profit for many of these teams or many of these brands come from things like streamers and many other things, and esports sometimes doesn't make a lot of profit. I'm not sure if this is true. So if you go in that direction, I can see something like a big company like Madison would probably invest more on the streamer side or getting that kind of stuff than the actual team. So I can see how it could get lost in a less priority-wise for that team or that org in general, and then lose its overall focus. But yeah, that's what I think, because I think a strong leadership is what actually makes the whole team, push forward stronger. Even in LEC, you can see G2's Ocelot being a very prominent figure in the scene and also a prominent figure in the team. And even if you look at the top 3 teams like TSM, TL, and C9.
Okay.
Raz?
Am I allowed to talk, Travis?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So here's the thing. So if we're talking like the original point about having Hotshot, not having Hotshot as like your main owner, front-facing human person is bad for a competitive standpoint. I agree with that. I mean, I disagree with that because obviously like the decisions he made at the time weren't as strong then. It doesn't stand the test of time. But since MSG came in, who was their forward-facing, face of ownership, like the Noah Winston or they don't have that. It doesn't exist. It's not there. Like the closest they had was their head coach in
Tony?
No, I'm talking about the
Nick?
like last year's
Allen?
head coach. No, last year's
Weldon.
head coach. Weldon Green, and barely. It was barely the case, right, for Weldon. First of all, like from a branding perspective, it's really important to have someone who's communicating this to the fans like consistently. CLG has a large fan base at the time. Like it's obviously deteriorating year in year. But like having that forward-facing person to be able to communicate your decisions, like to talk about this, and just to be there is really good for your organization, and also creates a sense of responsibility or accountability, where that's not necessarily there. And I think that the decision makers that you've been talking about, Travis, obviously share that burden, but it's not being answered to, right? Like that's my major issue, is that I do think that they need a forward-facing ownership or personality, so that fans feel like there's a sense of accountability when things don't go well. So, it doesn't exist for the past I don't know how many years.
I mean, Nick Allen, I think, was supposed to be that when he was there. Whether or not he will succeed in that role or not, people can decide for themselves. But we're running low on time, but I will just say, since you launched into the brand side really quickly, I agree. I think my doubt is with Hotshot can suddenly come in and build this amazing top tier roster. I think that is not clear to me. I do think Hotshot leaving the scene essentially is not good. It was not too long ago that they had the like Hotshot versus Regi, TSM versus CLG, who's going to get their hair dyed thing. I think it was like in 2018, and like that was a fun element. The Hotshot was a good presence for this league, and I do miss him being around, though I think he would probably be getting a lot of flame if he was still the face of CLG at this moment, in the same way that organization is. But I've talked about in the past, like, it is difficult because I don't even know who I should interview at that organization about anything, because they just don't have like a Trisha, or a Jack or any of these people. So I do think we would be better off having Hotshot here. I don't think he would solve a lot of the problems that Nako. I'm trying to remember how you said it. Yes,
but Nako. But yes.
Unfortunately, we're winding down though. So, is there anything you want to shout out before we go on to our last caller?
Can I just say my last point before we hit this?
I thought okay.
Because for me
right now, but go ahead.
Because for me, it can change our entire perspective of CLG as a team if they, like years prior, if they said if it's a budgeting issue, right? Or if it's an issue of just making the wrong decisions. I just want to know when before the year begins, what their expectations are. But even talking about the beginning of this year, the expectations weren't coming from CLG. It was coming from people who were talking to CLG. It was like saying, oh, they thought this and this and this about their team. Like, okay, that's great. I want to hear that from them. So yeah, that's my last point.
Thank you so much for the caller. Is there any shout-outs you want to make before we go on to our last caller?
Not really, but a shout-out to you, Travis, for being a really nice interviewer in majority of the scene. And shout-out to Mark for actually looking through these hundreds of topics and actually making sense of it. And then also shout-out to you, Ras, for being a good analyst. And also shout out to my friend Alexander. If he sees this, I'm going to be like, hi, that's all. Nice. He's also like a TSM, hardcore TSM / Doublelift fan. So he was very sad when Doublelift retired. So
as so many of us were. Thanks so much for the call.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good day.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Bye.
I appreciate him saying that I was a good analyst. And Mark, you you are the sifter of information.
He's already left, unfortunately. He can't hear you. Thank you to all the people who subbed during our scam train. Poro on Mars, Mac to Ace, Photo LOL, Duke by Fall, JFK Gone AFK, Sila QT, and some more that I'll get to very shortly. Nicole is here, returning caller to the show. Nicole, remind everybody where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada.
What do you want to talk about on this episode?
So I talked about it kind of last time. I wanted to bring up kind of like women in esports, and my take was specifically like why women are less likely to get involved in not only gaming and esports, but I think a lot of it is based on the fact that women still aren't. It's not really considered like a common thing for women to be gamers, which leads them to be stereotyped as soon as they're seen as like a gamer. And I think that just causes a lot of like negative attitudes in the community and a lot of toxicity that drives me further away.
Do you want to? I think it's a good. I think it's a good topic, and unfortunately, like
right.
I wish we had. This is the type of topic that I think could take like 30 minutes or an hour. Unfortunately,
totally
we're a little bit over time, but and so I apologize to anybody in advance if it feels like we are not covering this as well as we should. But do you want to expand a little bit on this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kind of just talk about like what I put down. I really think there's pressures and kind of like attitudes from everywhere. I think kind of like having like personally my family and also my friends, like gaming is not something that I talk about with them, because as soon as I bring it up, like none of my family really plays games, none of my friends really play games. It's really like, I don't know, like I feel like girls aren't really comfortable sharing it because it's almost seen as like weird, or all those stereotypes with the e-girls, the gamer girls, all that. They don't just see it as like a normal thing to do. So I think that kind of like chases people away from it. My other thing was also about the community, because as soon as you see like kind of a girl in gaming, right, that is kind of like a crazy thing, or like, whoa, this is a little unusual. So I think that really drives people to immediately stereotype them and say, oh yeah, okay, gamer girl, Lux player, support player, all these things, where it's like, yeah, sure, it's funny sometimes, but it really does add up, and it's really frustrating to not really just be treated as like your average player. And also, I think this might be a little bit controversial, but I think Riot kind of contributes to this too a lot of the time. And I just kind of want to disclose and say that girls who like the KDA stuff, the Star Guardian stuff, that's fine, you do you. But I really think like it goes really over the top to the point where it kind of becomes a joke. Like I've seen a lot of criticism on the KDA thing, which I think has been like kind of a marketing tool to get more people who are into like the K-pop scene, or a lot more girls into it, because it seems like a more almost like feminine thing, something you click on that would get you into League. It's gone really over the top. People are criticizing it. You've also kind of seen this in a lot of the female-only teams that they've tried to create. There was one a few years back, I think in either China or Korea, that had like 3 support players. It was a complete mess, and it kind of makes like a big joke almost of girls in gaming, and it associates that as cringy, as weird, and I think all these things just don't really help out kind of the stereotype. So, sorry, this is going on a lot, but I just want to say something like how I think it can kind of be fixed is trying to just get rid of those labels and just see women in gaming as a more normal thing. Because obviously we have people like Frost, Shox, Kelsey, even like some of the CEOs like Trisha, and it's like, yeah, they're just in esports. They're here to discuss it, and I really think it just needs to become more normalized, and that's it.
Can I hit this topic first, Travis?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I actually I really love this topic, because I think one idea that I have, and it's not even a new idea, it's a completely old one, but to the point that you made about all women teams, like I think the intent should be really, really clear and genuine right from the get-go. Sometimes like the all women teams in China, a good example of it, can feel like it's not even catered to women, it's catered to the men in the scene, which I think is not genuine, it's not correct. Like I've even seen third-party tournaments. One was held in Montreal not so long ago that were an all-women team that I thought was a big positive for the scene, or at least for women, just because it kind of hit what you wanted, like, or what women in the scene want, which is like a normalizing factor, a genuine way to generate interest and kind of allow women who are higher ranked or competitively minded, or just want to kind of have that sense of community in the game that they love, an access or a way to kind of form a team and be more involved, which feels like more of a gateway to what we would want for the future, which is women who are like have a lot more women in the competitive pool in Challenger or Grandmaster. We can always pick like strong women who are currently there, but obviously like creating a stronger pool or a larger pool is something that we want. And what you said about like the community kind of demonizing and using e-girls and all of these things and being misogynistic, we've seen examples of that. And it's not just League of Legends specific, it is definitely esports. And for traditional sports is something that we have to be cognizant first if we want to be able to attack, for sure. And I think it feels really difficult from where we currently are. So one thing I would love to see happen is if Riot started by creating all women like tournaments. It could be at an amateur level, it could be at a lower level for sure. But just so, if you are, in a collegiate level maybe, but like if you are interested and you want to be able to be a part of a community and kind of be more, I guess, more embedded in the scene, then I think that's a great way to start. I think that's a first step that I would love to see.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, did you have something you wanted to tack on to that? Because I was going to pivot.
Yeah, I was going to say even less on the competitive side. Like I know, Nicole, you mentioned sort of female faces that are highly visible. I, as somebody who's covered this game for so long as an esport, I remember there was a very long time where like if I ever met a woman at an event, she just absolutely found Shox to be like the most remarkable, fantastic person ever. And Shox, my friend, I think she's fantastic as well. But after I realized like people don't, again, kind of going back, before Avali was around, before Frosk, and I mean, Kelsey and Frosk have been around for a while, but I think maybe in less visible roles. There was like, if you were a woman that watched League Esports, there was one person anywhere highly visible that you could see, which was like Shox. And I think that kind of that representation problem was pretty clear. And I think the message, like I get that not everyone is going to like this conversation because not everybody feels great about it. But I think the message that it sends when you look, if you are a woman and you're watching League Esports and there is like 99% dudes that are a part of this, it's like, oh, this is not a place that is for you. And so I have been happy that over the past several years, and we are nowhere near, I think, where it would be great to be, but I've been happy to see at least more prominent female faces show up in the scene among team executives, among broadcasters, among analysts. I know G2 has an analyst now that I saw interviewed on the World's broadcast that is doing great work. So I've been sort of excited to see this progress over the years, and I hope it continues in that way.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was going to talk about, some of the sentiments I'm seeing in Twitch chat, which are, I think, common sentiments that were at one point something that I might have agreed with when I was like in high school or something, but I've changed a lot over the years. One of the ones is like everyone gets it bad in gaming, which I think is something that a lot of people say kind of reflexively when you talk about the culture surrounding women in gaming and downplay some of the struggles they face. For people who don't know, I dated Hafu for a couple of years, and like getting the kind of like curtain pulled back on what her experience was on Twitch compared to other people, it's really different. There's definitely an extra layer of hate that and like, I guess, like attacking that goes on. And so like, it's something that you might not notice if you are not close with someone and see it personally, because otherwise it's very easy to make some of these statements to dismiss some of it. And if this is arguably the best women gamer of all time getting this kind of stuff, you can imagine how it is for more regular people. And so seeing that, another, like that's a common sentiment that you see, and it's one that, you kind of just have to accept that it is worse for different groups of people, different minorities in the different groups. And so it's definitely something to be aware of, as well as the fact that people talk about how like population size and like kind of what Nicole was hitting on about how people are expected to be gamers as girls. Like there's just almost this expectation that they're not going to take it as seriously, which is just this weird fucked up expectation that people have that they're not going to be tryhards or something. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. I think Vienna Travis's mutual friend between us, talked about this as well to some degree, I think. And there's a lot of these kinds of things that people kind of put on women who play League and stuff. And it's not, you can't paint a blanket statement for all these, because, you know, League's community might be different than, like, I don't know, like Animal Crossing's community. Like, it's just fucking night and day when you start talking about stuff like that. But for competitive gaming, you know, there is this really harsh stigma of there's less women who do play competitively, because if you don't know Hafu's story, I mean, this is pretty public, so I don't think it's anything I can't say, but like, she started playing WoW because her ex-boyfriend started playing, and him and his friends told her that she wasn't going to be good, and that's why she became the best, because she was like, man, fuck these guys. But not everyone has that mindset, and you start getting beaten down as soon as you start playing, almost. And you know, how many people have the mental resiliency, not just women, but how many people have the mental resiliency from the moment you start doing something that people tell you this isn't for you? You know, how many people are going to climb to the top of that, as well as the fact that there's probably less approaching it from that angle. You know, I think it's a really complex issue.
I just to maybe say my final bit on this and then give the floor to Nicole before we close out the show, is like, I think frequently about how weird it is that we as a society have decided that video games are for dudes, generally speaking. And it's like, think about every other medium that is out there, like music and reading and writing and film and all this stuff. Imagine if we just decided, like, oh, films are for dudes. Like, women don't watch films. Like, that's not...
They can watch
like
rom-coms, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like
if that's like...
It's such a weird thing, and I suspect that, you know, years from now, as gaming becomes more... it's just like a general thing, and like the folks who don't game right now age out and all that stuff, the demo changes, like, we're going to look back and be like, how weird was it that at the very beginning of all this, we just decided video games were for dudes, whenever they are like this amazing... I mean, I think everybody in the chat will agree that, like, video games are this amazing, wonderful, artistic medium, and there's so many different types of it. So to just imply that, like, the genre or the medium of video games is not... It's just really... It's a very strange way of thinking about things. But Nicole, I know we are really over time, but I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to say any other sort of follow-up thoughts or anything else that you think about with regards to this stuff.
I don't know. It's actually kind of a good transition, because I was going to talk about how I think, like, really the biggest thing preventing a lot of women from not only, you know, just being in esports, maybe playing at a high level, because I think esports is like a really unique opportunity that in the next decade or so, we'll see if it becomes more equal, playing between men and women, if, you know, more women start playing, because there really isn't that, you know, physical, I guess, kind of barrier that you have with traditional sports, right? But yeah, I think honestly most of this is like a cultural thing, and I think a lot of it does come from, you know, family and friends, because just like I always hid my gaming from my parents, because I knew, you know, you get the comments like, oh, you're gonna just like live in my basement all day, blah blah blah. And I know men get those too, but like when my brother asked, hey, I play games all day, I want a PC, blah blah blah, it's like, oh, haha, you know, look, he's a gamer. Like, my parents literally like refused to get me a PC. They're like, no, like, you have to pay for it, we're gonna make sure everything's okay, blah blah blah. Like, they really, like, it's something where it's like my brother had a way easier time, and I think a lot of that is just the expectations, right? And just not being used to maybe girls like having that grind, like, and I think that just in gaming in general, it really disincentivizes girls from grinding the game because of all those, you know, like, judgment from not only their friends, where it's not really common, from their parents who aren't really used to it, whereas with boys it's more of a, you know, normal thing. You know, like, every boy goes home and plays video games with their friend, but not every girl does. So when they start, I think it's a little bit, you know, the parents don't know what to do, you obviously don't talk about it with your friends. So yeah, that's basically, yeah, that's it. I
know I shouldn't rise to the bait, but I'll just respond to two things I see in Twitch chat, because maybe some people are confused.
Maybe you can change some minds here, and it's worth the battle.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Exactly.
So some people say, I hate how everyone turns it into a demographic thing. Sometimes people just are not interested in stuff. as if generally speaking, women have just decided inherently biologically like video games are not for me. I would say I would encourage those people who have those opinions to go listen to any, like, there's tons and tons of stuff of when Valorant voice chat came out, the way that women get treated in that game versus the way that dudes get treated when they show up on voice chat. And like, I will say when I was younger, I hope I was never as terrible as the people that were in that, but I definitely probably made jokes about, oh, it's a girl voice or something like that in voice chat. And I'm happy that I've matured to a point where, like, you know, that's a stupid thing to do. But like anybody who does not think that women in the gaming space face considerably different reactions to existing in it than men do and have a very different experience is just fooling themselves. I think also, like, going way, way back, I know this is just like a one-off, but one of the original gaming things that was very popular when I was a kid was called a Game Boy. There are very subtle ways in which, you know, you can market products to men instead of women, and frequently, by the way, the exact same product will be repackaged and marketed to men or women in a very different way. So, like, there's a lot of different reasons why there is a long-standing trend of marketing video games and treating the genders in video games very differently.
All right, can I add one more thing as well?
Yeah, tag in there, buddy.
Okay. Two things on this one, actually. One, kind of hitting my own personal experiences, but also just another talking about, like, just to piggyback your point about, like, you speak to a woman in the scene. Like, I know, obviously, in the chat, you can ask her, and she's already been very vocal about it. Shox has been very vocal about it. Within my family, like, there's a very deep cultural difference between men and women. Like, I would have to fight to do the fucking dishes, you know what I mean? Like that like with my own mother, by the way. My own mother has this thing ingrained in herself about, like, the gender roles and what one should be doing, what shouldn't be doing. Like, those are the type of things that exist within each and every house. Like, I'm sure people in you know, America and Canada have different stories. Everyone has their own stories, but, like, if you want to know a person's perspective in their own situation, I would say, like, really learn from that, like, understand them. That's another point. The point that I wanted to hit about my own thing, like, like, for sure, it's insanely hard for women coming in, and, like, even, like, talking about a specific thing, like, I get messages about like, you know, black people in the scene, because, like, for me, at the very least, I had to have a thick skin if I wanted to be on the internet with, like, the anonymous shit out here. I hate voice chat because I remember vividly when I was, like, 13 playing SOCOM, and I was in the Southern servers, that I heard the N-word a lot of times. That shit exists, and I got pissed off every fucking time. So, like, that's why I think equity is important. That's why when I talked about having, like, women tournaments to strengthen the community amongst them and feel like they belong, is because if that's not the case in the current environment, and you're currently still having these conversations with people to understand your perspective, then you should also strengthen the environment over there so that they feel like they're still welcomed. Like, that's something that I think really should be the first step, because it's not going to be quick, it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be popular, but you should still fucking do it anyways because you know it's right.
Yeah, to chime in on the like.
Well, really quickly, I just want to address something I'm seeing in Twitch chat. I know that this is a very serious topic, but it's hilarious because Kobe raided the channel.
Horrible timing.
So not only did they show up during this very serious topic, but he also told them to spam the CAT word.
For Kobe.
And so everybody showed up with the raid, all immediately tried to do the raid spam, all immediately got timed out by Nightbot. What a great way. Mark.
While Raz is talking about serious stuff. I was going to say, like the women exclusive tournaments, I think people often look at it, you know, from a flawed, like, from their own perspective. Like, as a dude, I'm excluded from this tournament. They think it, like, is increasing. This is something I even saw in the chat this time, was like, it's increasing segregation by having women only tournaments. And it's not about trying, like, this is not the LCS level. We're talking about an event to make a subset, a minority group of people feel more comfortable attending events as a whole, so that, like, they can have their own environment that is more comfortable for people to play in. Because if you've ever been to, like, a local tournament, like, if you've ever been to MLGs, if you've been to, like, just, like, I've gone to local Smash events, you know, and it's like, 99% dudes, and it can be uncomfortable. So I think like the point is not to separate people, but to give people with similar interests a place to feel comfortable, and then hopefully that increases overall numbers and participation in events. And then there's still the totally open ones. Like we're not saying get rid of other events. It's not like this mutually exclusive thing where to have one event you must cancel other events. It's I think that's something that often gets mixed up with some of the ideas that people are pushing for.
Yeah. So I saw Ovely wants to come on. I messaged her, but and instead of her understanding that I told her that we're 30 minutes over time, she's now memeing me in the Twitch chat. But
what if we swapped her for me?
I think the show has gone on. Unfortunately, we cannot turn this discussion. I think it's important to have it. I wish we had more time than but we are 30 minutes over time frame, and hopefully, it's something that we can talk again in the future. So, thank you, Nicole, so much for the call and for raising this. I think it's important. Is there anything you want to say before we close out the show? Maybe some shout outs or something.
Are you sure we can't get Ovely on and just cut the show short? Like cut the show here and then do a post show segment with Ovely, because I love Ovely. I'd love to
I would suggest you and I feel very sad right now because I'd love to make this happen for you, but okay. I would suggest you and Ovely reach out and maybe you guys can do something together, because I unfortunately have a sponsor thing I was planning on doing right after this, and then I need to eat, and it's also getting close to, it's gonna be midnight and by the time I'm done with the stream, so right. I apologize that I can't have it go longer. Is there any shout outs? Are there any shout outs or anything that you want to make before we close out the show?
Yeah, I will shout out Ovely. Hit me up, because I'd love to talk and just see what's up. That's it.
That's what I love to hear. There we go.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for your time, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. That is the show. Mark, is there anything you want to say at the end of the show here?
No. It was a fun episode. I like taking the more open-ended calls. Unfortunate that I probably pulled too many people before getting to the last topic, which is we had a big one.
Too many useless topics, but thank God we had the
you and Travis
mod one.
Droning on. You two droned on the last two topics.
I don't know, man.
It was tough because
topic definitely deserved the time.
I feel like it was difficult because there's Hotshot. That's a complicated topic about somebody that I know. I don't want to just
Yeah, I know. But hopefully we have another stinker of an episode, so we can. That's really slow, so we can maybe delve into another complex topic more at the start of the show, so we allocate the proper amount of time for it.
True.
Or something.
Raz, any shout outs since you ended up becoming a co-host for this episode?
Big shout out to Nicole for the last question. I really enjoyed that one. I thought that was a great topic, and I think any future topics or shows or anything around that subject would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That's you implicitly signing up to do them.
Yeah, Travis, get in there.
Can't wait.
Slash Ovely.
Yes. I think what we will do is in the future, if we do bring up this topic, I will try to get Ovely on. I promise that, because it is tough, I think, for us as three dudes to appropriately give the responses that the topic deserves.
Yeah, and it's not a planned thing. That's the whole nature of this show, is it's kind of whatever pops up in chat, and we saw it, so we pulled it and figured it's better to talk about it, even if it's a little too short, and even if it's not, it is three dudes. I think it's better to talk about than just sweep it under the rug and just, not
Yeah, that was my philosophy on this as well. Yeah. Either way, thanks everyone for watching. I will hopefully have more content coming out soon. Still waiting on that Reginald interview, which I don't know when it's going to show up, but hopefully it ends up happening. And stick around on the stream because I'm going to do a quick sponsor thing before I head out to get food. Either way, thanks so much, Mark and Raz, for the show. Thanks to all of our callers. And this has been Hotline League, episode 152.